Give him.
Start?
You should start
Okay.
without me.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight's work session is a continuing discussion of the board on potential modification to our residential green building code. The board has seen a preliminary ordinance, which they read on March 12th, 2012, and then we had a discussion at the April 23rd, 2012 meeting as well. Ernie Kern, our chief building official, has provided some additional information in your packet with regard to the proposed modification, which I'll ask him here in a second to go through the chart, which includes a comparison of the city of Boulder, Boulder County, and their HERS score, and then a sliding scale chart to help try to show how, as the homes get larger, the HERS score or energy efficiency requirement gets greater as well. What we're looking for direction from the board is just how, what type of sliding scale the board would like to use or go to with this modification. Currently, our existing code, if a home up to 3,000 square feet has to have a HERS score, and Ernie can give a little background on the HERS rating as well, but they have to have a HERS or energy efficiency score of 70. Anything over 3,000, so from 3,001 or a greater size home, has to have a HERS score of 50. And the chart will show here in a second how that compares to the city of Boulder and Boulder County, just for comparison's sake. But a HERS score of 50 for a home that's 3,001 square feet is pretty restrictive when you look at the other communities. So what staff's recommending is to be less restrictive and to give some flexibility to homes, the smaller sized homes, so they don't have to spend the money to get to a HERS score of 50, which we think would be beneficial. And then we also, Ernie also provided a look at future subdivisions that could be built in town and what the size of those homes would be and what the HERS score would be required for them. Something else to point out, we added a second, kind of like a modified required schedule compared to what we proposed at the last meeting based on the board's discussion. And it makes the sliding energy efficiency scale a little less aggressive, so that smaller homes are required a little bit less HERS score or energy efficiency rating than what we had proposed back at the meeting in April. So, Ernie, if you want to go through your chart, and it's a little tough to see. I'll see if I can increase the size of this, and then. Makes it a little more readable, and I'll move it around as you need.
Yeah. This one is basically comparing Boulder County, City of Boulder, existing superior requirements, what we have proposed before, superior requirements, and then a new amended one that just reduces the slope but takes it out further. Okay, so it's less aggressive. And Boulder County, you can see they're starting at 85, but then over 1,000 they have a sliding scale that goes down. I guess over 1,000 they might drop to 60. That's what it is. And then they have a sliding scale that goes down. 1 point per 100 square feet. So that's what this represents. Just lowering the HERS value, increasing the requirement, and they go all the way down to 10 to a HERS score of 10 at 8,000 square feet or above. So, City of Boulder started with their HERS score of 70 up to 3,000 square feet. Then they dropped down to 60 or up to 5,000 square feet, and over 5,000 they dropped down to 35. Okay. Similar to what the existing Superior is that we drop down a little faster, a little to 5,000, and over 5,000 all the way down to the HERS score of 30.
Then Ernie, so the city of Boulder doesn't have a sliding scale.
No.
Theirs is just anything up to 3,000 square feet, they have to have a HERS score of 70. Anything up to from 3,001 to 5,000 has to have a HERS score of 60. And then anything over 5,000, it's got to have a HERS score of 35. And that's similar to ours, the way it exists now. So anything up to 3,000 square feet, if it's not multifamily, I think multifamily is a little different, but for single family, it's got to have a HERS score of 70. And then from 3,001 to 5,000, it goes down to a HERS score of 50. Whereas the city of Boulder is at a 60 HERS score. So our requirements are greater than what you have in the city of Boulder from 3,001 to 5,000 square feet. That's what I think we're looking for. We're proposing a modified schedule with a sliding scale so that somebody who wants to build a house, single-family home with 3,001 square feet, doesn't have to meet the greater scale and energy efficient home of 50, which is a pretty high standard. I'm sorry, Ernie, go ahead.
And then, so our proposal
Ernie,
for
here's, take this pointer so you can see. Oh, there's one. I don't know, somebody's still. Yeah, it should be. No.
There's something on the table.
Oh, yeah, there it is right there. Yeah, thank you. Thanks.
then
You guys take the mic though.
that's why it's there. And then, for Superior, then our original requirement was a sliding scale from, we backed it up to start at 2,500, so they would have an increase. But we went down gradually till we got to the 5,000 square feet. We were only at 35, and then from there we dropped down to the 25 score that we had before. Those matched. The concern over cost, obviously, as you go, your HERS score drops, your energy efficiency increases, was the concern. So we came up with an alternate then, which we're proposing as a possibility, which again starts at the 2,500 square feet, only goes down 1 point per 100 square feet. Previously we were at 1.5 point drop per 100 square feet. Now we're only going to drop 1, but we carried all the way out to 8,000 square feet, where we'll be down to a HERS score of 15. But it shows in the, as compared to here, we're at 3,001 square feet. Now you're going to be all the way down to the 50 score. In our other proposal, previously would be at 60 for that, and now we'll be at 65 there, but continuing down at the rate, so that the bigger the home, the lower your HERS score has to be.
And more energy efficient homes.
Right.
And these square footages include basement, right?
Correct.
And then the other thing I wanted to point out is we could start, so in our recommendation, depending on how the board's direction is, we start up to 2,500 square feet as the point of the scale with a HERS score 70. We could be similar to the city of Boulder and start that at 3,000 square feet if we wanted to. But do you want to go to the
So
graph?
just a question about the basement. So basement's finished or unfinished, above grade? low grade, all of them, doesn't make any difference.
Yeah.
Correct. Yep.
It's the area that could be habitable. So when he finishes their basement in the future, that becomes habitable space, so it has to count for this, it has to count as habitable space, because it could be.
And then we looked at the future residential subdivisions that could come online at some point in the future. Calmonte, which is somewhat built, and we'll have construction start up again in the future. Those homes are anywhere from 3,000 to 3,800 square feet with the basement. Remington Homes, based on the planned development that got approved, and so another similar development they have in Arvada is the square footage of those homes is 2,700 to 3,800 square feet. Original Town, there's only been a couple new homes, and those were larger homes, 3,300 square feet and 4,600 square feet. But the typical size home in Original Town is, on average, under 2,500 square feet. But we do have some undeveloped lots in Original Town that could be impacted by this as well. And then in the town center, we projected, just in our discussions with the architect and our own staff, that we think most of those homes will probably be multi-family or an urban style residential, so they'll be under 3,000 square feet, we think.
Yeah, and all multifamily stays at a Hurst score of 70. So,
Do you want me to pull up the graph?
yeah. This is just a graphic representation of the same chart. Again, Boulder starting at 70, they drop down to 60 at the 3,000 level, and at 5,000 they drop down again to their level, finally their base level of 35, their lowest level. Boulder County, as you see, they start at 60, then they drop on their gradual plane. Theirs is also 1 point per 100 square feet above 3,000 going down. Our red line was Superior existing, started at 70, dropped down all the way to 50 here at 3,001 square feet, and at 5,001 square feet dropped down to 25. Then we have the two slope lines, our previous proposal there, and an alternate that we have now, which is the same rate as Boulder County. We start a little bit sooner. Again, at the same place, we can be 5 points higher. Our lowest score would be 15, the lowest required. But those areas, you're pretty energy efficient. Then these are up here. Shows you the approximate size of the homes. Remington and Calmonte both are just under 3,000, up to a maximum of 3,800. And then the larger Richmond homes, went back and looked at some of those. And those were in this area, up to 6,000 square feet, 6,500. And Golden Design about the same. Homes that start at 3,500 to 4,000 range, and then up to 6,500. So, and that includes their basements.
And so is the proposal to actually say that your house is 3,323, you'd actually plot out the exact thing on the line,
No.
or you're
It would be
still
per
the
100
step
square
one?
feet. So every 100 square feet, so your 3,325 is the same as 3,400. So I mean, it's a 1 point step down for each 100 square feet.
Okay, but you're not talking just per 1,000. You're every 100 you would plot that on the line.
Right.
Okay.
We just look at the graph, or it's done in words in the code. So it says for every 100 square feet or more, or up to 100 square feet, you drop 1 point on the thing. 1 point over her score.
Okay.
Above a base.
Can I ask a question? Existing home in Rock Creek, let's say, that is 5,500 to 6,500 square feet, let's say it's a Richmond home that you have on here, is it actually a HERS score of 25? Was it built at that?
No, these weren't in existence at the time they were built.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is only for new construction from here forward.
I figured that. What would its HERS score be?
If it was built today, anything over
Worse than 70.
HERS.
She says for existing homes.
Worse
They have-
than,
they
worse
would
than
have-
70.
Oh.
Well, yeah, probably worse than
Oh.
70.
The
Yeah,
average
you know, I don't know.
stock of homes in existence in the whole country is about 150. A HERS score of 150.
So for the same home, that's a newer home, let's say a comparable home, same size home as a Richmond 5,500 square feet, a new one over here or wherever, is going to cost more based on the HERS score, is that correct?
Probably slightly more.
Depends on the size.
Well, I mean, yeah, there's.
I'm
other things-
saying it's 5,500 square feet, just like a home in Rock Creek is 5,500 square feet, apples to apples here.
Well,
Then it depends on whether it's a single home or the same design as several.
right, and there's other things. I mean, we have better.
Yeah, I'm
have
trying to
better-
compare apples to apples.
Well,
You
it's
can't.
tough to do because you have better heating and air conditioning systems now. You have better wet window technology. You have better insulation technology. So all these things add up for just a more efficient home, even without, making the changes to the code. You're going to have a better home built today than you would have 10 or 15 years ago.
But what I've heard is.
But at a higher
a
price?
Percentage point, maybe
What?
a percent of the cost to get to some of these kinds of levels for an average sized house that you're talking about.
I don't read that in here.
I know.
I'm in the cover memo
Yes.
where it talks about the first drop of 5 HERS from 60 to 55 costing $10,000.
Yeah.
And then as we get more severe, it increasingly gets more expensive, from 3 times that to 5 times that, because it said 20 to 40K plus the 10K. So for the incremental 5 points of efficiency,
Right.
more efficient, it could cost up to 5 times more than at that higher HERS score.
Two things that go into that. This person was from Boulder Creek Builders, and he was talking about the homes out here, the townhomes out there, Calmonte, okay, which already have their design done, and they can't really change much as far as orientation or anything like that. Okay, so they would be looking to come in with the same model. So for them to adjust those homes to get them to those HERS scores, they already do a lot. That's what they say on their own to get them down to the 70 or 60 into that range. Okay, so they're talking about then going to the next step. For them,
So they're
the existing codes, they drop right down to 50, HERS score 50. Now, with either of these proposed, their HERS score would be above 60, and they wouldn't have much trouble getting there, okay, on those homes out there. And that would not, they say they can do this at an inexpensive cost, but it's staying with the existing, that's what they were talking about.
Right.
Their drop was down to 50 right away. They would have difficulty adjusting those homes to get that down to 50.
Well, follow your pointer all the way down to 15. If it's that difficult, just go down straight. If it's that difficult incrementally to get from 55 down to 50 for one builder, imagine builders having to get from 55 all the way down to 15. I'm very concerned about the increased cost of building and the increased
Well, you're talking about-
affordability.
You're talking about homes over 5,000 square feet.
Yeah.
Yes, and most
So-
of Rock Creek is over.
No, but
5,000 square feet.
These these requirements here don't apply to existing.
I know. I'm trying to
You're saying
finish
if they came in
out
and built
Deborah's.
somewhere else, right?
If, for example, some new plot of land opened up for development of that same size of square footage, okay? A 5,500 square foot house, including the basement, okay? So if something opened up,
Yeah.
what would be, you said our homes in Rock Creek, and it's not hard for me to believe that they had a HERS score of 150 because they just ooze leakage. And so they're at 150 is what I heard. Why they've got up.
That's what you said for the average.
70, I heard
home in the
70.
US.
That is in houses built in the 90s, but anyway.
Right, that's her, and so, given what Lisa was saying about, apparently, it's more cost efficient to get more energy efficient, but
Yes.
we're tightening the
So-
requirements, so how much would
One thing-
it add?
They had some examples in that link. I don't know if any of you went there, but there was a discussion on the HERS scores for Boulder and Boulder County when they were starting out, and they chose different buildings and different ways to get down to the HERS score. They chose one alternate, which is the no-brainer type thing. You just put solar on the house. How much do you need to get down there? And even to get to a HERS score of 15 was only $68,000. So, I mean, if you went
For
strictly
what
solar,
what square footage of home?
but they were talking about theirs, so it's talking about Boulder County. And I'm not sure if that was when if they changed their graph since then. But it was, maybe it was even her score of 10.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Can I,
Yeah.
she went first.
So I had a problem when I read that part of the document, and I brought it up with Matt also. Because that may be accurate for someone who's already designed, oriented, and everything else, existing plans, and then has to go back and retrofit that work and try to jerry-rig it into the plans they already have. When you're designing a house from scratch, and you have the chance to orient it and all the rest of the things that go into it, the extra cost is on the order of 0, 1 to 3%. That's what I understand when you're designing it from you're starting from new plans. And that's what we'd be assuming for the most part. That is one builder trying to jerry-rig stuff on top of something he's already designed. I had a big problem with those being presented as the cost.
Yeah, I'd love to see this data, because everything I've been presented thus far is totally to the contrary. The cover memo to the video, I couldn't couldn't open the video for whatever reason, but the cover memo, and I think it was dated 2008, said that this type of efficiency can only be accomplished through sort of renewable means, through solar, through heat pump, I think was the other example.
When you're getting down here,
When you're
yes.
getting into the 8,000 square foot home, that's true.
Well, that's not what it said. It said under 50 HERS, as I recall in that cover memo. It didn't say down at 15.
So,
So if there's other data, my point is, if Lisa has data, or if Lisa's been presented data, I'd like to see that as well.
and just, I want to make sure that it's clear what our existing code is. So anything over 3,001 square feet, they have to have a HERS score of 50.
Right, right. Which I am, I'll think aloud right now for the public, is I'm a little troubled at how we arrived at that to begin with. And I am glad we're reviewing it from a lot of angles here. But
So do you have what's your desire, what you want HERS to do?
What's my desire? Well, my desire is, one, we have some development needs in this town, and I believe we've got to have conversations with developers to figure out what more than one developer thinks. I really admire Boulder Creek's homes, et cetera, but they're just one. So I'd like to see us have more broad conversation with developers to get some sense of what these actual costs are going to be. And I do believe we've got to keep the prices in this community affordable and competitive with our neighboring areas. It sort of stunned me to see that we're more rigorous than the City of Boulder, and the City of Boulder spends a lot of time figuring out their green requirements. We asked for Louisville's requirements and Broomfield's, et cetera, as the contiguous competition here, nearby. I'd like to see that. So I do believe we've got to stay affordable, and we've got to make sure we don't shoot ourselves in the foot from a development perspective.
And I think the key here is being affordable. I don't want to become a Boulder where our prices are astronomical for 1,000 square feet, little shack. That's not Superior. We are not that. And I do want to make sure that in moving forward, that these homes, whatever the size is, are not penalized in building here.
I guess my only thought about this is that no 5,000 square foot house is going to be seen as affordable. I mean, that's not an affordable house. I mean,
We're including
interested
basement.
if we're really interested in affordable housing, that's a different topic, but I think it's unrelated to the current one.
Yeah, that's not what I'm not talking about affordable housing as far as the government subsidized.
I'm not either, but if you want affordable housing, build apartments or build 1,000 square foot houses. I don't think that that's what we're looking for.
Well, I would suggest 70% of this community is 3,000 square feet on the main floor, which translates to close to 5,000, including a basement. I mean, so there are a lot of homes that
I
are,
don't know any house that has 3,000 on one floor.
no, it's 3,000 above grade.
Above grade on
It's
two floors.
3,000 above grade
Yeah.
and a basement for
So,
5,000.
How about, I mean,
I'd like to see the same
yeah.
things I thought I asked for last time, which was Louisville and other communities around,
Yeah.
what those were. I asked for what the costs would be, and I didn't mean just one builder's, vested interest cost, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
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 Those are on
Any
there.
one builder's going to have an agenda, and all builders are going to have an agenda that aren't sort of green builders. I think we need to have a better mix of what's actually happening. What is it costing for them to build in some of these other communities, like Boulder, like elsewhere, in real life? Because they're going to have found a way to do it as cost effectively as possible to meet these standards. That's what the real dollar is to me, not speculating what might be the worst case so that they can, make sure that this doesn't go forward. So that's what interests me. And I'd like to see a presentation with bullet points and stuff like that, so I can clearly follow the logic of what's going on. And that's what I thought I asked for last time.
Yeah, and
If you look at the chart I just handed out there, the Boulder Creek Builders is just the one column there, the three numbers they gave us. The other numbers are done by Sustainably Built, which they don't build. They are a consultant to builders and homeowners, right. So the other three columns there, they looked at three ways of attaining the HERS score required for different size buildings for both Boulder and Boulder County. And so I guess if you just look at the far right column, they were, get to a HERS score of 60, was only $7,000 to $22,000. Okay. Their first way of looking at it, the PV only, I mean, that was the simplest way. Okay, you've got your design already, let's solve some PV on the house, and what does it cost to get down to that HERS score? And so you can see it isn't, that isn't the best way to do it. The best way to do it is you will start from the design with the architect. You have a consultant like Sustainably Built who does HERS ratings, and they come in and work with the architect to design the house. Your window orientation, your overhangs, your shading, the building shading, your type of insulation, your amount of insulation, all of that goes into your HERS score, and you can, you lower it a lot with those types of things. And then if you still need to go more, that's when you come back with some PV solar. And the scores, the total way to get to the package is not that expensive.
What size home needs to get to 47.5 or 44 or whatever you've got here?
That was ours.
What size of home, square feet, has to get there?
Okay, a 5,001 square foot home under our alternate method, our superior alternate here, the upper dotted line. And this chart, the A.
Go over from 45. What square foot home is it?
Right
That
here?
one, or do you want the one over on the right? I don't know.
Over here, this one.
Yeah, just
I think
pick
that's-
that one.
Then what square foot home would that have to be? Would that be about?
5,001.
Just go straight up and you can, yeah.
5,000.
Yeah.
5,000.
Can you
But
go down to
5,000
show me what it
total
says.
feet.
Over. There you go. Now go
Oh,
down.
you're over 6,000.
Yeah, so 6,000 square foot, what does a 6,000 square foot house cost? In numbers is a problem.
Probably
I want to see percents.
more than a million, yeah.
Yeah.
I would say about 1.3 million
So
here,
40
and Boulder even more.
So 20,000 to 40 to 50,000, 23 to 50K out of a 1 million what house is what percent? 2%.
Because it's 2,000 in the basement.
That's what I'm trying to get at. We're not looking at the same denominator in all these cases. You know, you might be talking about it. Oh my gosh, it'll cost $3,000 for a house that to get 68.5, but that's not the same. You're not then saying, oh my gosh, to get for that same house to get to a 35 is $40,000. You're saying now we're moving up to into the $1 million+ homes, and then it's something.
I
So
find-
percent we're talking more like
Yeah.
2%.
I like your points, Lisa. I don't necessarily agree with them, but I think they're all valid, and we need to know what it is we're discussing here. I disagree in Rock Creek. There's a whole line of Richmond product out there that's 4,000 feet above grade, square feet above grade, and 2,000 in the basement puts you at 6,000 square feet. That basement may be unfinished, and those houses are not going at $1.3 million. So I question the price point, et cetera. What I need here is total fact-based decision-making, and I appreciate you having gotten this sustainably built, these quotes here, but that's just yet one more entity, right?
So, a question. Go ahead.
I'm going to piggyback on hers real quick, and then you can just say whatever you want to say. But I want to look at our neighbors, not Boulder. I look at Boulder as its own entity, and I don't really want to be compared to that. I want to look at Louisville, Broomfield, Lafayette, Erie, because
So-
that's who we compete against as
Okay.
far as
And
housing.
those four communities, I don't think have a separate residential green building program.
At all?
I don't. They just go by the International Building Code, whether it's
And-
the 2009 or 2000, whatever they're using.
We don't know what their
The city
current
of
is.
Longmont
does.
does. The city of Longmont does.
Doesn't Louisville?
No, I believe so.
And
I'll
are they
check
at
though.
2009 or
I'm pretty sure that the last
2012?
meeting I was at, they said they did.
Most are 2006 or 9 right now,
Okay, good.
and some are 2012, but we'll check.
And where is the international, the IEBC or whatever, where are those, what are those requirements comparatively?
2009 code was probably a HER score of 85. We're talking roughly 2012
So they're
code
less
is a HER
rigorous?
score of 70.
The
Less
2012 is, yeah.
70.
70, which is what we
Okay,
adopted.
so there, can we impute then that Broomfield and Louisville are less rigorous than either of our two proposals in the past couple of months?
Yes.
So the competition is less rigorous,
Wow.
nearer to us, and even if you go up to Boulder, it's less rigorous. So we would be the most rigorous in the geographic area.
So my question was
Not
gonna-
on the alternate plan.
Yeah, I
Right,
think
yeah.
so.
Lifted
The
up
way
to
you are
3,000.
now, with the existing code, yes. You are actually more rigorous than Boulder.
Yeah.
But on the alternate.
On the alternate, you move it to 3,000 to where everybody else is at, and then you have the instead of the stepwise, you have per 100.
We're actually more rigorous on 2,500. We're at higher.
Well,
So
that could be changed.
We're at more
If you move
efficient.
to the 3,000 where everybody else is.
Yeah.
But it's pretty slight. A few points doesn't cost them a builder, new
Is
builder
there,
anything.
is there a low HER score that would be comfortable for the board, like as a bottom?
I can't pick a number, that's what the whole problem is.
I think at the end of the day, that's what we're going to do. So, I mean, unless you can figure out a metric about how this, if we have this information, which will guide me in this particular direction, all we're doing is really picking a number.
Well, I can pick a number. Here's how I would pick a number. I would interview what I consider a reasonable sampling of builders/developers, maybe builders. And then I would have conversations with Boulder, Louisville, Broomfield, to see why it is they chose, why did Boulder, the city of Boulder, choose to stop at 35 and not go any more energy efficient than that? Why did County of Boulder go to 25 and stop? So I've just used conversations with them to determine what their reasoning was.
Boulder County went all the way down to 10.
Who's the bottom, there's City of Boulder on the horizontal over to the right, then who's below them?
That red is.
That was Superior existing?
That's Superior right
Okay.
now. And this is Boulder County all the way down to 10 at 8,000
Yeah.
square feet.
I'm pretty much in my analysis excluding Boulder County. I'm looking at City of Boulder, City of Broomfield, City of Louisville.
So your metric, would it, if Louisville is this, we should just do that? Is that the?
Nope.
I
want to make a wise,
I'm just trying to
a wise
staff
decision.
make a decision
Yeah.
about how we're going to pick this number.
Right. I just
And I think we're all
said.
interested in wise
Yeah.
decisions, but
Yeah.
the question is, what's the data that's required to make that decision?
Right.
And I don't know what that is.
And I'm not sure that, we should impose a specific score. I just don't feel, I feel like that's kind of godlike. That's not
Well, we have.
my job, is to impose a score on, builders and homeowners. Basically, it translates to the homeowner. If they choose to have it that way, then that's their choice to bring it down to the 10 or 25. They should be able to choose.
I can't imagine any, so at 10, what size house is that on ours? That's larger than any home that's ever been built here.
8,000 square feet, we're at 15 on alternate.
My point is not to have limitations. Maybe you have,
Well, you're gonna have-
70 is your threshold, and then it's up to the builder and the homeowner to decide where they go from there, not what we impose on them.
The homeowner's going to be, just from my perspective, the homeowner means the next 5 people that own the house. It's
Yes,
not one homeowner.
yeah,
So
But
you're
it
building,
doesn't-
you're
it
building
doesn't
for the
matter.
future. Well,
Right.
from my perspective.
yeah.
When
Well, then
energy
you
costs
can-
go up, I think it would make a lot of sense, but
Well, so you can choose, you have the choice.
The one person could choose.
Well, anyone has the choice to buy a home that's more energy efficient than a home that isn't. I chose to buy one that wasn't. No, I'm just kidding. I just don't like the idea of imposing it. I don't think it's our
So
job.
should we get rid of all building codes, or what's the?
No,
Where do we draw that, the
So-
line about where the building codes are?
So there's a threshold, right? 70 or whatever the number is,
That we'll just pick.
But
That's-
imposing based on square footage and a sliding scale, I think is just not our place. That's how I feel.
So there's basically, Sandy.
Yeah. Well, I would, there's a middle ground between your point and Deborah's point. The fact is, if we're sitting on a whole community of houses that probably are closer to 150 than they are to 70, we as a community are making a great deal of progress. So let's not lose sight of that. 70, I would love a 70 home, and that's your high point here. So if we decide that the low point doesn't have to be on a sliding scale and go down to 15, but instead, we're okay where Boulder is on 35, I think we've still accomplished a huge achievement over these years in terms of energy efficiency. So I don't want to overlook that. And I do tend to agree with Deborah that below a certain point, and I'm sort of leaning towards the 35, frankly, below a certain point, that's a deal to be struck between a builder and a real energy-conscious homeowner with a lot of money. But in the middle, we've got to both keep our development interests in mind, and we've got to, I believe, retain some sense of affordability relative to our competition in residential homes.
I guess, the whole point of all this is about sustainability, energy conservation, and greenhouse gases. I mean, it's the whole ball. It's all. This is where this comes from, and the requirement. And what they're saying is, when you get into these very large homes, they can afford to, with not much increase percentage-wise, to add in and design and build better and enough to get down to these HERS scores.
Yeah.
And it's partly because what's perceived is they're putting a disproportionate burden on the use of energy and other things like that by having, by using more energy per person because it's such a large home. I think that's part of what it's going at. So it's trying to mitigate that and say, okay, let's say there's an energy budget per person or something like that. How do we get there?
Well, and I get that, but we're not here to ration energy, I mean, that's not our job, that's how I feel that we're deciding to ration it, and
I mean,
it
that's
just
everyone's
feels
job.
uncomfortable.
So,
But I get your point, and I get that we want to be, more energy conscious, but I think at some point, we've gone overboard.
So I think that what I've heard, just trying to help staff here, is that 35 is the lowest that we want to go.
That's my view. I don't know that anybody else agrees with me.
That's fine, honestly, it's fine with me. Once again, we're just picking numbers here, so there's no science related to any of this, so that's all we're doing here. Just want to make sure people know that that's what we're doing. I mean, I understand the concept is that
I think we can do it with science. We could say we don't want it to cost more than X% of the home, therefore, based on current costs, we think the number would be here. That would be science, and that would be something that's doable. And I have
That's
a
something
big
I
problem
can
with saying we're
support.
just picking enough from out of the air, because we're not. Or we don't have to if we would do that homework.
Lisa, I like your approach. But,
I do like that approach.
But I urge you to consider that all this is variable. You've got variable energy costs and you've got variable house prices. So when you're sitting here determining a absolute percentage that is codified when it's based on two variable components, it's not science there. It becomes art.
It's not
Yeah.
based on energy cost, but it is based on building cost.
Right, and building costs shift as
I understand. And
energy
technology's
efficiency
improved.
becomes
Yes.
more
Yes.
affordable.
But you
And
pick a number at some point, and then perhaps you modify it later on, but you pick a number at some point.
right, I'd like to see where that fell.
So would I.
I think it's worth an analysis.
I definitely think it's worth
So I just want to make sure.
analyzing in that
Once
regard.
again, I just want to make sure staff knows what the next step is. So is the board, what is going to drive the board's decision? What the neighbors are, or what, what percentage do we want? Or should we just forget this discussion because there's just, leave it alone, don't change anything? I mean, there's not really, I'm not really getting the point of what we're trying to find here now.
Now that we've let the cat out of the bag, and I know that we're at 50 and 25, I'm not happy with that. I think it's too onerous. And so now that the cat's out of the bag, I think we've got to decide whether or not we want to keep it at 50 and 25 or what we want to do with it. So I say we've got to see it through.
So we'll, what I heard was look at least the cities of Broomfield and Louisville.
And
maybe
Longmont, you said?
And Longmont, and see what they have as far as requirements. Talk to some area home builders. And then I'm thinking we come back with a couple options for the board to consider. One with the sliding scale, starting at 70 for 3,000 square foot homes, up to, and then down to 35 as the lowest HERS score required. And then the second option being homes up to 3,000 square feet would have a HERS requirement of 70. Homes from 3,001 to 5,000, let's say, or 6,000, or whatever the board wants to decide would have a HERS score of whatever, 50, 60, and then anything 5,001 or 6,001 or whichever number's chosen and greater would have a HERS score of 35.
That isn't what I said, but that's
No,
that's one of the
there's
options.
options, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We would come back with a couple options.
Well, I wouldn't have both options end at 35 because I'm hearing Lisa wanting more energy efficiency. So some options have to go beyond, more efficient than 35.
And yeah, we could do that. It could go
And I'm
down
happy to
to
explain to
the.
you in more detail what I'm talking about, but I think you guys can understand.
And is there a system that we could develop that isn't penalizing the builder and the homeowner, but rewarding them.
In the long
In
run,
other
we are
words-
rewarding them with reduced energy costs. With the more efficient home, you have reduced energy costs.
Okay, so then what would that break-even point be of the percentage that you paid extra to get that cost? And over what point of energy efficiency, low-cost bills would that, where does that fall? 7 years, 5 years, 3 years? That would help me. But I'm thinking it's some kind of incentive program where 70 is the threshold. I'm just throwing out numbers, okay? It doesn't mean anything. It's just give an example. 70 is the threshold, but if you want to get to 50 or 25, you get X. If you you get my point.
A percentage of your building permit fee reduced.
I don't know, you guys can come up with that, but that's why I'm like, isn't there a way to give the incentive instead of making it be, well, wow, I don't really want to build in Superior because, well, if I want to build something that big, I'm required to get down to 35, and I got to, modify this, that, and the other, and this is how much it's going to cost me. But instead, I could be thinking, well, I have incentives that I might want to go to Superior and build there because these are the incentives I get if I can get it down to 35. That's just my thoughts.
Okay. I would bring this back in a couple of months. Keep our current code and bring it back in a couple of months, I guess. I don't.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ernie.
Thank you, Ernie.
One other big push that they have, I attend some meetings with the Boulder County Green Building Guild, and some of their meetings, I don't attend these particular meetings, but they're about greening the CML listings and stuff like that. And how do they, if you get a home that's green, how do you market that and list it, and when you're going to sell it and resell it, that sort of thing. So, and they're making, it's a big topic of conversation amongst our realtors and so.
And these scores are potentially marketing it.
Right.
Ernie, the other thing that concerns me is this science of measuring the HERS on a newly constructed home or a home under construction. I just worry a lot that there's a lot of fudge factor in there, and there's a lot of potential for manipulation, and I would like a little bit of education on what's the science. If I have 3, whoever measures this, come into a property, or however it's measured, will they all come up within a similar range of her score, or will one be at, say, oh, it's 25, one say it's 50, and one say it's 70?
It would be much closer than that. It's done on a computer program. You put all the information about the house into it, and so it's going to come out. I mean, they might vary something on, maybe they measure something different, they calculate the windows a little differently or something, but it's going to come out very close to her score. There's one main computer program. It's not the only one, but one main one that everyone is using. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. I'll take a 2-minute break and start the regular meeting. Welcome, everybody. I'd like to call to order a Town of Superior Board of Trustees meeting for May 14th, 2012. And Phyllis, if you'd call the roll.
Okay, Mayor Andrew Muffa,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Ilya Gregorius.
Here.
Trustees Joe Serrato, Chris Anson, Sandy Pennington,
Here.
Lisa Stuman.
Here.
Deborah Williams,
Here.
Town Manager Matt Bagley,
Here.
Town Attorney Kendra Carberry,
Here.
Town Clerk Sarah Franklin.
Thank you. That brings us to item number 3. Are there any changes to tonight's agenda? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda by Trustee Skomats. Is there a second by Trustee Gregorius? Discussion? All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. That brings us to item number 4, reports, questions, and issues. And Trustee Pennington, would you like to start tonight?
Sure. Couple of meetings. I think most of us attended. One was a comp plan public meeting, and Matt, I'm sure you'll give an update on that. I thought there was a nice assortment of people there. And then I attended the public meeting on Town 9 plans, and I'm sure we'll hear tonight the upshot of that, but I thought that was also a good meeting. Just some brief updates. Somebody was concerned about the Historical Commission accounts, and those have all successfully been integrated with the town, et cetera, and they're not, so they're no longer have their own account. The same night as the comp plan public meeting, Historical Commission hosted their spring program on the Ludlow massacre, and I heard 50 to 55 people attended, so they thought that was very successful. On the historic walk, which I think was this weekend through the old coal mining sites in original town, about 25 folks were in attendance, so that's a good thing. We had a question way back from, I think, George Kuffner Sr. on the lighting of the historical Town of Superior site by the museum. And it was reported at Historical Commission that the Martin staff has found a way to successfully light that from the top, et cetera. I'll let Martin get to that if he wants to, but just take that off the active agenda. It's been figured out and it's going to be installed. I do have a question that I want to throw out there. It doesn't need to be discussed right now on my turn. How or if we plan to specifically involve the various advisory committees in both the comp plan process and in the town center process. I think since we've got the advisory committees here, we might find a way to bring them into that process, and I didn't recall that but if you want to address that on your time, Matt, but I would like to see that, so. Let's see what else I have here. I heard through the grapevine, I think at the Historical Commission meeting, where we've got a date for the open house for the advisory committees. May 30th or something like that. Is that for sure?
Yeah, it's not set in stone yet. But
Okay.
that looks like it might be a
Okay.
good date.
Just want to put my vote behind that if it counts. I think that's a great idea, as there was a little bit of discussion there as reinstating the volunteer appreciation dinner, and that was well met at Historical Commission as well.
We're looking at in September for that.
Okay.
After our last event.
Okay. And then I've already reported to Matt, we have mosquito swarms on the open space behind our house, and I don't know if that's townwide or not.
We contract with Colorado Mosquito Control and notify them of that spot, and they were going to go out and take a look. So.
Okay, great. That's all. Oh, tonight, the Boy Scouts, that's where Chris is. The Cub Scouts, I don't know if I've got the story exactly right. Somebody, Matt or Martin probably knows. Did Larry Dorsey from the Historical Commission nominate the Cub Scouts for their participation in our National Day of Service or something like that?
Yeah.
With the Heritage Group up in Boulder? Okay. And they are being recognized tonight for their participation in that, so that's nice. That's all.
Trustee Gregorius.
I attended the open house for the community, the comp plan with the open house here. Was that last week, or it seems like the weeks are?
May 3rd.
2 weeks ago. And I was amazed at the turnout. I don't know if we have the exact numbers of how many people showed up, but at least 30, 40 maybe even.
Yeah.
It was very well done, very nice presentation. Just great to communicate with members of our community and answer questions and get their feedback. So very well done, and I'm sure it's only going to get better. Last week attended the Colorado Prayer Luncheon down at the Convention Center with Mayor Muckle and Trustee Williams. It was the 25th anniversary. I guess it's an annual event. Governor Hickenlooper was there and spoke. The Deputy Mayor of Denver, the Director of the Denver Mission,
Attorney General.
the Attorney General was there, reading scripture. I thought it was really interesting. And then the guest speaker was Ambassador Hall, former congressman from Ohio for like 24 years, and then ambassador to Italy. And just loved his comments. Basically, it was a collaborative effort of business leaders. What's that?
Faith leaders and
Yeah,
governmental.
faith leaders and governmental leaders from throughout the Denver metro area getting together. And I guess the best way to describe it is bringing faith or using prayer as a tool, perhaps, to enhance the living standards of our cities, and just getting together with a common cause, and just a great feeling of fellowship and collaboration. And I had no idea that it even existed here in Colorado. It was very impressive, the types of people in leadership positions who were very open about their belief system and how that plays out with making decisions for the improvement of our community. So that was a great meeting.
Okay, so
Trustee Williams?
I went to that same meeting, so I won't say anything. Had the same takeaway. I went to a US 36 Commuting Solutions meeting, and every time we go, that discussion is all about RTD, and then, of course, US 36 corridor project, the bus rapid transit. And Louisville and Superior actually were one of the guests presenting our diverging diamond intersection, our interchange at Highway 36 and McCaslin. So that was kind of nice to be there and see our two communities collaborating together and trying to be a part of the US 36 corridor. And hopefully we can see some costs from Dr. Cog, RTD, as far as there's some costs, extra costs involving this interchange to help the buses, the RTD buses, shave off time trying to get through 36 and down to either Superior or Boulder or Denver. So hopefully we can get some extra funds from other entities other than just sharing it with Louisville and ourselves. I also went to a Dr. Cog awards night. It was at the new Colorado History Museum. That was, for me, the highlight. Nothing else about it was interesting. Just basically people getting awards. I probably never will go again, but it was nice to go and just hobnob and network with our neighbors. And the Denver mayor was there to speak, Mayor Hancock, and other than that, that's about it. I also attended a El Dorado K through 8 school accountability committee meeting, and I informed them about our contingency grant funds that we reinstated a month ago, and they did not know about it. So they are intending to submit an application in June. I believe that's the end of June. June 29th would be the deadline.
That's right.
Okay. And I just kind of want to mention that in case there's someone out there listening that didn't know about it. And I have a couple of things I wanted to find out about. We were talking about giving out awards to the outgoing advisory committee members, and where are we with that? When?
Yeah, so we're talking about proclamations, and probably I was thinking the month of July, because we're doing appointments in June, so we'll know,
Okay.
you know, who's
Okay.
still on the committees and who's not. We can do them at meetings, maybe 2 meetings in July, depending on how many, and schedules, and who can make it and who can't.
Okay. And then another thing, you talked about the town center and the comp plan meetings. How are we going to tape them, or is there any kind of playback that we can, maybe it's
Yeah,
meeting
we're
notes,
working on that.
minutes?
So for like,
Because those that can't make that meeting might want to look on our website and see, well, what was this about? What was, the takeaway from it? And
yeah, so we're looking into that still. I don't know if we can do something at the meetings, or if it's something in addition to the meetings, or, so we're looking at a couple options.
okay, so I just wanted to know if you had an idea. And then I probably could save this for later, but it's Hollyoak Lane.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'll save that for later.
Maybe I'll get that email.
Yeah.
I forwarded it.
To what?
I made sure Matt got it.
Good.
Let's see, 2 things to mention. The manager and I had a meeting with the mayor of Louisville and the manager and assistant manager in Louisville to talk about interchange funding, and I thought that was a pretty successful meeting, and I think we'll have more discussions about that. And attended the dedication for the Greenway Foundation, which is extending from it's the Department of Interior and the Secretary specifically desire to connect the refuge at the Arsenal. That's one. I was blanking on the name. The Arsenal, 2 lakes, Rocky Flats, and then to Rocky Mountain National Park. That was attended by the Mayor of Denver, the Secretary of the Interior, and the Governor. And I think there's going to be a big push to have that happen. So just as an FYI. Yes, Trustee Pennington.
Just so silence doesn't be misinterpreted for agreement on that, I just caution Arsenal and Rocky Flats, nuclear dumps. And so the way in which we achieve this full 360 degrees or whatnot is very important, I think, to this community. Okay?
So the town of Superior was on the diagram of the maps of the trail connections, and there was a connection to Rocky Flats from the town of Superior on that, and I think there's going to be a big push, just as an FYI, from the Department of the Interior, from the Governor, from Senator Udall, and Congressman Perlmutter, who are all at this event pushing for this to happen. So,
But not Polis?
not Polis.
And is the current plan through Rocky Flats to bisect it or to go around it?
No, you can't bisect Rocky Flats because the industrial zone is in
Well,
the
I mean,
middle
go
of it,
through
but
in the
on the perimeter of it.
the
yes.
safe zone.
Yeah.
Where, I'm assuming it's using existing trails in Superior, but then where, at what point does it access?
That's
Connect.
yeah. So that's up for discussion, and so the exact points are not completely identified, but it'd be essentially from our trailhead going south over to Rocky Flats and connecting somewhere over there.
So through the Verahay property and then through the Boulder County?
Right, and I assume that would be the Boulder County Trail that Boulder County has discussed as part of our trails master plan. So,
Yeah. My point is if there's a way not to go through, but instead to go around nicely, maybe that conversation should be started now rather than after everybody's got all the important people have their hearts set on traversing it.
well, once again, it was the Secretary of the Interior's desire to connect all of them, which means going from one through the other to the other one, including a trail on that property.
So can I just assume that the state is in favor of Golden's Bikeway?
That was brought up, and the answer is no. And so so people supporting this, once again, Senator Udall, Congressman Perlmutter, the Secretary of the Interior, the Governor of the state of Colorado. I think there will be a lot of push for this. I think that's all I had.
Good heads up.
Yep, Trustee Squamatz.
So I attended a recycling board meeting for Boulder County, and they went over the revenues and what's happened with costs and so on, but also the expectations of the upgrades that they're doing to the system, for the recycling system. We had a town center meeting, and we had for the PD and the comp plan meetings that most of us attended, or all of us, or whatever. There was a Chamber of Commerce, a nice Chamber of Commerce event this last week with a pretty good attendance, I think, and on a perfect picked day. I went to a meeting of the Consortium of Cities that's dealing with whether there are any water issues that aren't being addressed in this region, and what are the gaps. So I'll let you know if and when that comes to fruition. There was a hazardous waste day last weekend, or 2 weekends ago, and a shred day this past weekend. And the shred day had good attendance, and the trucks were grinding away, and I think people seemed to like it. There was also a CML meeting and discussed a couple of policy issues that passed, one related to transportation and clarifying language, allowing highway money to be used to some degree for multimodal transportation, and the other one, a very feel-good statement having to do with something about education is a community-wide value, sort of that sort of thing, a feel-good thing. I wondered how the 5K race went, and I hope that everybody who's listening will come out and support the Marvel. How'd the 5K race go?
It was well. They had, I forget how many racers they have. Yeah, like around 80 racers, so.
Great.
And it supports the Boulder County Sheriff's deputies, can't think of the name right now, cadet program.
And how are we coming on our 1,000 entrants for the Boulder?
For the Superior Mark?
No,
Oh,
Boulder.
Oh, I don't know, I don't have that. Yeah. But we'll get you an update.
So those who don't know, who are listening, trying to get 1,000 entrants from Superior in the Boulder. And we're close, so every racer counts.
Do you get that data from Boulder? How do you measure
Matt?
what you're getting?
How did you get
So
the
that,
entrants?
yeah.
Last year we were 875, and I'm not sure how you got that data.
I don't think you have to, I mean, they register by what city you're in, so
Yeah,
that's
so-
how they track it. But I'll
Pretty close, huh?
update you on where we're at with that.
Okay. Mr. Magley, I think you're up, or Trustee Williams?
With the Superior Morgul, how many racers do we have?
I don't have that
We don't.
information, but I'll get it for you.
All right. It's up from last year. That you already know. Great.
Town manager.
Let's see. So we've heard from the Northern Colorado, this is over a couple weeks for digest, but Northern Colorado Water Conservancy District, sorry. Our quota for the year, they increased what our quota is that we get for Colorado Big Thompson water shares. And so we're good for 2012 season, it looks like, and probably through 2013 as well. So just based on the snow levels that we got previous winter, the reservoirs were to the max, and they were able to fill them again to the max before this watering season. So we look in good shape for that.
But isn't that true just for this year, and isn't next year really threatened if we don't do something this year?
No, our Paul Zilas, who's our water attorney, tracks this very closely, and he feels we will be in good shape for 2013 as well. But that doesn't mean people should just, we always encourage water conservation and try not to irrigate during the hottest times of the day and that type of stuff. So, and we have irrigation audits that are available to residents as well. So, and our rebates.
And wasn't there some kind of strategy that one of the water stations had? I think it was near Estes Park, or I can't remember where they opened the gates or closed the gates or whatever it was and brought in a certain amount of water at one point, which now puts them in a place where they were able, I don't know, I'm probably saying this all wrong, but it's all timing, and that basically gave 2013 the extra water so that we don't have an issue for next year, even if...
Sure.
Yeah, on that water tour, we were told that, something to that effect.
We'll get an update from the water attorney.
Yeah, we
Yep.
plan on having that again.
Let's leave it at the
As work session. Let's see. So the comprehensive plan, the next joint town board planning commission meeting for that is scheduled for May 24th, which is Thursday, 6 p.m. And then the town center meeting is May 23rd, which is that Wednesday night. And that starts at 7 p.m., which is a little bit different than the 6 p.m. that we've been doing. So I just want to make sure everybody's aware of that. This is
So those are
that'll
both
probably be the only meeting that starts at 7.
2 nights in a row?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be out of town that whole week, so I'm not
Oh,
going to
okay.
be able to be here, yeah.
Okay, and if, so I'll try to get to whichever board members can't make the meeting or the planning commissioners ahead of time if I can, information that we're going to discuss. The last community meeting we had on May 3rd for the comp plan was well attended. We did it here at Town Hall. The next community meeting, which I don't have the date in front of me, but that will be held at one of the schools, either Superior Elementary or El Dorado KA. And they're going to have some exercises for people that attend to do as far as uses on different properties and stuff like that. Let's see. The candidates forum for the Boulder County Commissioners was held here on May 8th. I think a number of board members attended that. It was well attended from what I hear. So, and we'll be replaying that on Channel 8, and then I think the League of Women Voters will be airing it in other cities as well. We're giving them copies of the tape. So
Hey, Matt, on that, it was well attended, but I didn't think it was well attended by Superior necessarily.
well, and it wasn't just
Right,
advertised just for the
right, and I thought it was excellent, so I really strongly encourage everybody to view that before they cast their vote for BOCO Commissioner.
And so along those lines,
yeah.
though, we're also thinking of hosting one for the state legislative race too, are we?
we haven't been planning for that, but
Okay.
we can reach out to them.
Might be, after I think the only people that we'd be voting for would be in the House because the senator isn't up for
Yeah,
election. So just, I don't think it's a huge deal, but in
We can chat about it.
in the interest of advancing democracy and allowing people to see their candidates before voting, it'd be nice if possible.
And if we're not able to pull something together as far as the candidates forum, we can always invite them to maybe one of the meetings
Sure.
as well. Sales tax for the month of March was up 2.5% over 2011. So for the year it's up just over 2%, so that's good there. Committee vacancies, we are planning for June 11th for interviews. Hopefully wanting to start those at 5:30 to get them all, try to get them all done on the 11th. Right now we have 7 plus 1, so 8 applications for the committees, and hopefully we'll get a few more before the interviews, and then we'll continue to take applications as they come in. So.
And if someone can't make the June 11th meeting, and they want to put forth something so that the trustees and residents know who they are and what they're about, is there something they can do for that?
Well, we would just look at scheduling them for another time, and then have, we don't have to do all the appointments at that second meeting in June. We can do additional appointments in July if we need to. So we would just schedule interviews for those individuals. I think that'd be a better part of the process. We met with John Terr, who's the town's RTE board representative, last week, just to discuss with him the interchange design that we've been considering, make sure, you know, he's seen it, he saw it before that, but he was supportive of it. We talked about the cuts to the Cullen Ride, and you know, if there's anything he can do for us on that end. And then the 228 route, we want to make sure, we told him we were looking at doing improvements, bus shelters this year, and I don't want to do those if they're just going to change the alignment or cut the service on us. So he was going to check with the general manager on that and get back to us. So I'll follow up with the board on that. And then we had a couple of successful events. The Hard to Recycle Household Hazardous Waste event was well participated in by residents, I think, and the Shred It Day event as well. And then we have the Superior Memorial coming up this weekend, so a busy weekend. And the last thing I had was the next meeting's on Tuesday. And those my this is May 29th follows. So if you can't make that meeting, will you let Phyllis know so we can get a count of who?
Put me right there. Can't make that.
I'm sorry, did anybody else? I heard Trustee Williams. But
I'll be there.
Okay. I arranged my flights. Thank you.
That was it for me.
Thanks. Town Attorney?
Nothing for me, thanks.
Town Clerk?
No.
Thank you. So that brings us to item number 5, public comment on consent agenda and non-agenda items.
Jim Payne, Superior resident. Good evening. I just have a quick one. I'd mentioned this once before, but I would like to encourage the board to look into establishing a virtual or electronic posting for meetings so that as a agenda or meeting goes up on the glass enclosed board outside, our town clerk also puts it up on the website in one place where everybody can see them. Because if you're like I'm on a committee, I get those notices obviously, but if it's another committee or something else, I don't necessarily see those. And I have to call and track people down to find out when that meeting is being held. So I suggest that be encouraged. Thank you.
For the committee meetings,
Really for anything that, actually I would do anything that requires a public posting. In fact, on the HOA, I'm on the HOA board, as you know, and under state laws governing the HOAs, we have to post them electronically. So I would do the same thing for the town.
okay, thank you.
George Kuffner, 7520. About the Rocky Flats deal, now, are they talking, they probably ain't going to dissect it because of the hazardous materials that are buried. But now, did they say anything about putting a trail around, like both sides, or just one side? I'm just curious.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. So the answer is it's not fully flushed out what would happen there. There's just the concept of linking all the refuges. But I think Rocky Flats, the Division of Wildlife, ran out of money for some of their public process. But my understanding is that there's a goal to have a circumferential trail system of some form around through the wildlife area, and obviously not going through the industrial zone.
Okay.
So, but I think that's to be determined.
That way, if one is
Trustee
not
Williams.
enough to be exposed, you can go to all of them and get exposed.
No cynicism there, but, George, the earlier plan that came up in a discussion actually with officials out there, they intended to have internal walking trails to see all the wildlife.
But I think that's still
And
still planned.
my understanding is that this huge thing around the Denver area is intended to go through Rocky Flats, not around it.
Okay. Thanks.
Well, it sounds like a zoo that glows at night.
So
Three-headed animals come to mind.
it'll be interesting to see what the proposal is. Additional public comment? Seeing none, that brings us to 6 presentations, and tonight we have a presentation from the Chamber as well as Town 9 Park Enhancement Project. So we'll start with the Chamber. Welcome very much. Thank you.
Hello, Heather Craycraft from the Superior Chamber of Commerce. Good evening. Just 2 things to touch on, as we tend to update you once a month, so thank you to the town manager for the time. We recently delivered our rooftop drop bags that were delivered to one section of the Superior area. Our plan is to hit all 4 areas. We split them into quadrants throughout the year, so this was round 1. Inside this year, we have tried to draw some new attention to it to highlight some of the businesses that are in the area that are supporting our community by entering what we're calling our rooftop ticket. Inside, we delivered 1,000 bags, so we have over 1,000 tickets out there, and I'm excited to announce within, I guess, the last 10 days, we've had over 250 hits to our website directly to this page, which might not sound a lot to a lot of people, but to us at the Chamber, it gives us a chance to really educate the community as well as educate the businesses of who's out there and who's participating. So we're excited about that. By looking through your bag and checking your rooftop ticket to see if you're a winner, there's 3 outstanding prizes donated from 3 local companies. So there's including a $100 gift certificate to Superior Liquor, which might be an incentive for some people. If not, there's a fantastic meal a month for a year from Chick-fil-A, valued at over $320. And then Ariel MIS, who is a business, computer-based business by one of our residents, Bob McCool, donated a $50 gift certificate to a coffee house called Bean and Berry that's actively involved in our community. So wanted to thank those businesses, and if you guys have any questions, let us know. And lastly, just wanted to personally invite each of you to our annual dinner and awards, which is coming up on Tuesday, June 5th. So each of you as trustees are cordially invited. You will be receiving an invitation, but if you happen to be on town, it's on a Tuesday night at the Horizons at 6 p.m., ends approximately at 8 p.m., and in that we also do a silent auction that benefits the Monarch High School business program. So if you would like to come, bring your pocketbook. There's always some great items. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
I have a personal testimonial I'd like to share on camera. I was at the dentist's office, and the new dentist has taken over a old dentist practice, and he was talking to the receptionist about marketing and getting his name out, and I suggested this, at which point one of the office workers came out and said, "I just got it. It was fantastic." And I think you plan to hand deliver him one of them, so the community takes notice. I think good work.
Great, thank you. That brings us to 6B, review of the Town 9 Park Enhancement Project Design. Mr. Magley.
Thank you, Mayor. We wanted to give an update to the board on the Town 9 project. It's moving along, and Martin Toth and Jim Payne, as well as our consultants here, they have a presentation for the board. We are planning on finalizing construction documents and going out to bid after this discussion. So we wanted to give the board one last update before we took it that final step. Martin.
Great, thanks.
Good evening. Thank you, Martin Toth, town staff. For the benefit of any residents who are watching and aren't familiar with Town 9 Park, it's a few blocks just west of here, south of the Superior Marketplace where the Super Target store is. Between Coal Creek Drive and Sycamore, the property was originally dedicated to the town as part of the Superior Marketplace property development in the late 90s. Town 9 Park, as we refer to it, is a neighborhood park facility that serves original town and Sagamore neighborhoods. It includes multi-purpose athletic fields on the western half, the far side closest to Sagamore, a traditional play structure and seasonal restroom facility in the center, and a minimally landscaped grass area on the east side. The site's for several years been subject of discussions about how to improve it, with the ultimate goal being a finished park site for the entire original town and Sagamore neighborhoods to enjoy. The town's Parks, Recreation, Open Space, and Trails Advisory Committee, PROSTAC, has looked at this project as a priority item in considering budget recommendations to bring to the board each year during the annual budget process. We'll come back and, the committee's really began to focus energy on this over the last couple of years, beginning really in 2010, focusing some dedicated time and energy to help elucidate and really figure out what the best improvements would be to serve the community as a neighborhood park facility here. Last year, PROSTAC, in assembling their annual work plan, included this as a project to take on for the year. The committee coordinated with staff and a consultant team to lead a significant community engagement process to look at options and then receive feedback. Jim Payne, as the town manager mentioned, is here tonight. He'll talk a little bit about what that community process included, what the real results were, and some of the milestone parts of that process were. The overall goal of that process was to develop a consensus-based program for improvements at Town 9 Park and figure out what made sense to really include there that would serve the neighborhood. Again, thinking about Town 9 Park as serving predominantly original town and Sagamore residents. It was thanks in large part to the many residents of original town and Sagamore who participated in that process. It was the work that they really came together and did with us as a team that resulted in the master plan and the budget estimate that this board saw last fall. It was included in the 2012 budget process. The project did end up being included in the budget for this year. So PROSTAC and staff have worked together with the consultant team from Design Concepts in Lafayette, and as the town manager mentioned, Shannon Weber, principal at Design Concepts, is here tonight to share a little bit about what the design looks like and how it came together and what the different elements are. Before I hand this off, I'll briefly review the timeline going forward. As the town manager mentioned, we'll plan on having a solicitation ready to post at the end of the month, and then have scheduled right now, tentatively schedule the meeting of June 25th for a contract to come back before the board to consider approval for construction that would begin in July. We're planning for construction to start in July and then be done by September.
Can I ask a schedule question?
Sure.
Are there any GOCO grants we're going after, and if so, what's that timing?
Sure. The timeline for the GOCO grant that was submitted earlier this year is to find out the results by mid-June. So ideally, we'd have an idea before the cover memo was assembled for the board to receive for the June 25th meeting. We'd have an idea of whether or not the town was going to be a recipient of a grant award. Of course, all fingers crossed, but we're going to be optimistic.
Do you know how much?
What was the request?
The request was for $150,000.
So does the budgeted amount, I keep hearing 700,000, does that include the 150 or is the 150 on top of it?
It's included. The $700,000 that's included in this year's budget is appropriated. It includes $150,000 in grant revenue.
Okay.
So with that, I'll turn it over to Jim Payne. He'll talk a little bit about what the community engagement process looked like, and then Shannon Weber will come up and go over the presentation slides that you had in your packet.
Good evening, Jim Payne, the PROSTAC chair. I just wanted to give you a very brief, I won't even go through the whole chart, but I just want to make the point, particularly for those who might be tuning in for the first time in this process, that this goes back to 2010 when the board at the time tasked PROSTAC with coming up with recommendations with a clear direction to make this a complete quality park for the residents in the northern end of town and for the entire town. So in 2011, we had a very intensive process that had a lot of outreach. I'd be surprised if there's another project that has had as much community outreach. And it was made easier by the fact that we're really focusing on a specific part of town, so it was a lot easier and cost-effective to reach them frequently. But we had meetings that began in January. We had community meetings in this room. We had the design concepts put up on easels in the lobby for months. We had encouraged internet feedback and ideas and got quite a lot. So we got a lot of input from the neighborhoods in Sagamore and Original Town. Had postcard mailings. We had, with Trustee Hanson, we put up real estate boxes all over the area and put flyers for meetings. It was quite intensive. So we feel we had a lot of excellent input, and the major assumptions that came out of that in working with you, the board, over the very many meetings with you, were that it was to be consistent with the comprehensive plan in place and the Prost master plan, a neighborhood park, not a community park, a neighborhood park for the residents in the northern neighborhoods, that it would remain non-programmed, and that would be a basic assumption to the extent that affected our decisions on content in the park. That it would be essentially that the more active part would remain to the west, away from residential areas, and that the eastern part would remain relatively passive, and that we would maintain, for neighborhood reasons and historic reasons, a youth baseball feature in the park, and also, of course, as a neighborhood park, it would have had this anyway, but a vital teen-aimed feature. So those are the basic assumptions. We presented the design concepts to you, the board, last August. You, I think enthusiastically, I could say, gave us the proper head nods to go ahead, and it was included in the budget for this year. And what I just wanted to add is that this year we picked up that process again as we went to the final design stage, and that working closely with Design Concepts as a landscape design consultants, and had another series of meetings that go back to the beginning of this year, including a community outreach meeting that was on the April 25th, and Planning Commission meeting on the 1st of May, and we are now ready to present this to you. So I wanted to call that to your attention. Thank you for your support in giving us the resources to do this the right way, which you've done, and staff has been very, very supportive all the way through. And with that, I'll turn it over to Shannon.
Thank you.
Good evening, guys. Okay, can you guys hear me okay? There you go. Okay.
I'm sorry, what's name and...
Oh, I'm sorry. Shannon Weber with Design Concepts.
Thank you.
Yeah. So what we did for the core of the park, this is a central area right here. Right here is your existing play apparatus and the walk that comes down the street and around the apparatus. As you guys remember, in the master plan, we extended that play area all the way down a ways, and we have an upper play area, we call it the north play area, play pit might be a better word for it, and then the lower play pit with all the pieces of equipment that we're proposing for the two play areas. And I'll show you the play equipment here in just a second. So what we did is we have a walk that comes this way to a shelter, a large shelter right here, and then the walk comes all the way down on this side of the south play pit, and then of course up here on the north play pit. And then we do have a walk doing this right here down into, this is the basketball court, just to give you an idea of where we're at. And it goes right out to the kite trail that we have in the design. So we have some sod areas, seating areas along here just on a slope. and some benches. We're going to do a couple of benches here, benching area, as well as right down here, and then up again right up here. So we'll have some separate benches in addition to the side areas. Along that, we have an outdoor classroom, which is consisting mostly of boulders, boulder outdoor classroom here. Overall, that's the basic concept of it all, the layout, I'll call it, of it all. We will go into, I'll show you a little bit of the theming in some next slides that we have to give you an idea of where we're going with all of the concepts and the theming that we have, but that's basically the layout. This is your existing restroom right here, and the landscape bed that's around it, and the walk that's existing now, and that comes right up into this upper, I'll call it an upper level play area, your existing play area. Okay. So as Jim mentioned, we went through quite a process in picking out play equipment for these play areas, new play equipment, I'll say. And for that north play pit that I was showing you up above, we're going to come with a composite. We call it a composite or an apparatus that is going to look it's a little bit different than what you guys have up there right now. You have what we call a post and a platform apparatus up there. So we wanted to do something different for that bottom north play pit, and we're picking up a lot on the radial pattern, much like the layout of the whole entire play area. It does some different things. You have upper body play as well as different balancing things, and it's just a nice change from your standard traditional post and platform. So we're planning that for the upper pit area. We are going to include a couple of swings, especially for tots in that play area, as well as a balance beam and what we call spinners, which are extremely popular right now. In the south play area, we are going to incorporate a couple of climbing boulders with the ropes that go in between. So again, it's that it really is, both pits are for all different age levels. There isn't one that is just for tot and one that's for just primary play or the older kids. We're really combining the two pits with different pieces of equipment. So these are the boulders that are going to go in that bottom pit. And again, that can work for all different age levels, different capabilities and abilities. We have the Supernova on the very end, which spins and is a big balancing, very popular at all our parks and schools. We're going to include swings again. So we have the taller swings. The other ones were more of a tot swing, so they'll have that tot seat in it. This one we wanted to make sure we had just the typical standard belt swings for the older kids. And then we're going to include a little bit more role playing. We picked up on the dozer, just again picking up on the whole mining theme of the whole park and different ways of doing that. So those are some pieces of equipment we've chosen for that south pit. Part of the master plan is to make sure we have the distance markers that we call it, that's around the perimeter of the park. So it'll tell you if you're going a quarter mile, half mile, or whatever, all the way around. And in the master plan, as an alternate, we wanted to do fitness stations. We're finding out now more as professionals and designers that really the fitness stations work really well if you clump them together. It's becoming more of a social thing than anything else. So this just gives you a couple of examples. These are all made out of wood, and we're actually looking at ones that are made out of metal. But what we want to do is in that upper portion, I don't know if you want to go back, Martin, thanks. I didn't really hit on that. Thank you. So this area right up here we thought would be a great place to put those fitness stations. And again, we're clumping them all together in one area. And the whole idea is that as a parent or as a park user, you can be up here at this highest point and be able to look down and see your kids playing, or see out of east of the park. You can really see quite honestly to the west of the park at this location. But the whole idea was to keep it out of the way somewhat of all the other activity going on, but keep it clustered together. So that's what we're looking for. And we're looking at really simple, like the slides show you, very simple play or fitness stations is what we're looking for. And we're picking those out right now. The shelter, the large shelter at the very bottom, is this style. It's going to have this roof style, which we thought picked up really nicely on the mining theme that we have for the park. We'd like to use the stone columns and follow the stone that you have out in front of this building here, so red flagstone. And we have some detailing and things like that that I'll show you in the next couple of slides that customize it for this park. The ball field, We will customize a backstop. Right here is what it is. And then we are going to skin for T-ball and Little League. So this is a skin field for those two age groups, as well as pitcher's mounds. So that is what it's going to look like with sod in the center. And this is some detailing that we put together for the backstop. We really wanted to customize it for this park, of course. So we have put the name of the field, thank you, Kupfner Field, at the top. And then this is a little, if you want to go to the right for me a little bit, we want to incorporate some mining icons or parts of the heritage of Superior into the backboard or backstop of the field. So you'll see like there's a cart, there's a mining cart and tractor and some picks and shovels and that sort of thing. So we want to bring that across the top and again just kind of customize it for Town 9 Park. Powder coat. We want to make it black. The teen area is to the south and west of that big shelter that I showed you in the layout. And this walk actually gets you right up to that shelter that's about right here. And then it terminates down here at a climbing boulder. That's what it is. So because we went through a lot of different discussions with this, but what we've decided to do is this is a seat wall that will also act as a skateboard feature. So the whole point of this walk is to get enough run so that they can use their skateboards along this edge. And again, it'll be at the height of a seat wall, so you can also sit on it. We put in a ping pong table, or tennis table is another word for it. It's concrete, and they have them just for this sort of situation. And then we're just going to incorporate some of the seat boulders, much like how we were doing the outdoor classroom, tying it over into the teen area. We know that a big part of that age group is socializing with their friends and hanging out, so we want to make sure we have some seating areas. And then this outside edge right here is landscape, so we have some big trees for shade in this whole area right through here. And then down below, it works in actually kind of a layered effect. This is the existing walk that goes around your park and the Crusher Finds shoulder. And then we want to do a Crusher Finds pad, is what we call it, and put a couple of fitness stations because we understand that's something that the teens typically get into doing a little bit of, whether it's chin-ups or pull-ups or sit-ups or something like that. Very simple again, but doing a couple of those stations at the bottom layer, and then there's a couple of steps up that get you to that upper level of the skateboarding feature. And then, like I said, the very terminus, we have a climbing boulder for that age group. Again, it's challenging enough for that age group as well as the younger ages, but that's the whole point, and that's at the terminus of the whole teen area. So we've been working a lot on not only the layout of the whole play area, but the theming that we want to do for this play and for this park. And we're picking up a lot on the history of Superior as well as its heritage. So in doing our research, we're finding that the industrial mine camp, the layout, and I know it's a little hard to see, but we really want to incorporate it into this portion of the area that includes the shelter. And that's really where you're going to get the whole story of what's happening all the way around. This upper layer right up here is the railroad loop, we're calling it. So these are all divided into loops based on the Superior heritage. So this is the railroad loop, and again, you can kind of see where we're picking up on the railroad layout of a track on the upper portion. This is the mining loop right here. And what we're doing is we're sandblasting some of these images that follows that miner's loop or that miner's theme into that walk. So you have the railroad here, the miner's loop here, and then this is the rancher's loop right here. And again, these seating areas all, pertain to those different themes in that different loop that happens within those play areas. And then, of course, they surround the play pits that we just talked about earlier. So that's what we're doing for that. The outdoor classroom, we know that these are the first settlers. There's been signs of stone rings in this area. So we are going to incorporate some of the images from that and make it part of this, which is across from the shelter. And then the kite trail, as we all know, is historical because this is the beginning of the kite trail that goes across the park. We would like to put in a map right here. And when we do all this, it'll be sandblasted into the concrete. So it's sandblasted and then stained. So you'll see these images for each one of these loops that again picks up on the whole thing and the overall concept and the overall, just the overall character and theme of the whole entire park. The existing walk that we have right here, we'd like to pick up on the wildlife that was in this area or still is in this area, and picking up on some of those tracks and doing some fun things with that walk, the existing walk. This is that shelter area that I was just showing you. This is the outdoor classroom, and this is the shelter. So back to the architecture of that shelter, there's some fun things that we can do to customize it again for Town 9. So this is the industrial mine, and then we're picking up on those icons that I showed you earlier that are on the backstop. Will be incorporated into the architecture, the customizing of the shelter. And again, picking up on the mind map over in this area, and a little bit of interpretive signage that tells you the whole story of the entire area, some seat walls, and then some real abstract sandblasting on the ground plane. The kite trail, which, as we said before, starts right up here where the play area is, and it runs across the northeast portion of the park. Again, we want to make sure that folks understand what this is here for and why it's in the formation and the alignment that it's in. So we would like to identify it, and we know that at this point in particular, there's a little bit of wayfinding that needs to happen because, as you know, and it's an alternate actually to continue those trails all the way down, but if you go this direction a ways on that kite trail, you would hit Superior. So we want to put a little bit of wayfinding signage along that trail, so as you're walking, you understand, or traveling across that trail, what this is all about. As well as we're playing with some ideas of incorporating some metal art. We're looking at doing the rancher right here, and then of course the train right here. So again, it's just to identify it a little bit more. We do have we talked about doing some benches along here for seating, of course, for that passive part of the park, but we want to also incorporate it into the whole theme of the entire core area. And I think that's it.
Great, thanks.
So Martin, do you have a bird's eye view of this?
So, Martin Toth, town staff. So, Trustee Pennington, you asked about a bird's eye view of the park. So, this is the revised version that the board saw last August, indicating what's included in this overall project. And Shannon went through the individual pieces for you. So, again, the far west side of the park, Sagamore's over here to the left. Here's the Super Target store here. Ball field that's existing. The upgrading of the baseball facility on the west side. The center play pit area and the existing restroom that are there now, the teen area just to the south and to the west, and the basketball court and the kite trail emulation across the eastern portion.
Are the horseshoes still in?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, horseshoe pit and then potentially bocce ball would be good. Low intensity or lower cost ads to have on that. Again, that less active, more passive eastern portion of the park. Shannon revised this probably, if you go back and look, the horseshoe pit is now north-south rather than east-west, so that the person who's on the east side doesn't get a decided advantage during a certain portion of the day when his or her opponent would have to look directly into the sun. It was a nice ad. And then also bocce ball would also be a good fit. again, having a more passive area on the east side, and then some low-intensity areas for sitting and socializing on that eastern portion. And Jim just reminded me about the winterization of the restrooms. So the modular restrooms that were added a few years ago, right now are not open in the winter. They're not heated. They don't have heat or they don't have electricity or gas that goes to the building itself. So part of the upgrades for this project include bringing electric to the site and then installing some heaters in the chase closet that's in the middle of the building itself.
So I think on the initial design, I saw there was also community garden and maybe some additional landscaping on the eastern side of the park. Is that still there, or is that a deduct for cost? Or
the original master plan vision that this group saw last spring in June and July had a few things in the vision that were not included. They weren't part of the fiscally constrained recommendation that was assembled for this year's budget.
Are you part of the transportation?
So yeah, there were some elements that were included, including a community garden, a few other amenities that would have ramped up the price substantially. And those were, water feature was a big one. There was a lot of discussion during the community engagement process of incorporating somehow a water feature, maybe a little small splash pad, but the expense associated with the installation of a facility like that and then the operations going forward. If you remember, the feedback we got at the time was that they're treated on the regulatory side like a pool. They have to have the same health standards and the same attention to maintenance that a pool would receive. And this would be year-round or for a good portion of the year here. So it was something that ended up not being included in this iteration of the plan. There was some discussion at the time of potentially incorporating it into the marketplace, if there was ever an iteration of the marketplace that made sense to include it in the breezeway that's directly north of the existing crossing point. There's a hard surface, great crossing point that leads to a great plaza at the marketplace that's perhaps underutilized and could benefit from an amenity like that.
And I think there was some discussion also about having unstructured play sort of on the eastern side, maybe some boulders, or not like in a play pit, but they were just outs for people or kids to climb on, or that kind of stuff.
So yeah, Mayor, you mentioned a couple of things. So passive, and then having some play features that aren't necessarily programmed. So the eastern side, as you can tell, it doesn't have a lot on it here. Some landscaping will be added over time as we try to add to different park facilities around town. Number one, and then the horseshoe pits and the bocce ball were an attempt to have something that was a lower cost and a lower intensity activity area, an area that's not intended to be used the way the ball field is, the athletic field that's on the west side. So a little bit of both. If there's some opportunities to add the boulders, as you heard Shannon and Jim both mention, resonated really strongly with the community. The idea of having a climbing boulder was something that was a high priority, and we heard that over and over again from a lot of different perspectives. So finding a way to include that and really feature that in this park is something that I think the engagement process and the committee and staff and the consultant team really wanted to try and find a way to make a priority. So boulders are definitely included, and the passive area on the west was retained.
But he was asking about on the east as well, just a few boulders.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, sorry, that's, in case he didn't hear.
Yep.
Boulders are easy.
So I have a list of questions on this. Do you have more presentation, or?
No, we just plan to go through the slides and talk to you a little bit about design and give you an update about what happened between last August when you saw the site master plan to translating that into design drawings and then eventually construction drawings. So just to give you all an opportunity to check in one more time before we go out to bid.
Okay. Well, I'll save my questions for later. So, but Trustee Williams, then Trustee Skomas.
So I'm wondering how you arrived at the basketball court over the skate park and the tennis court.
Just curious.
The long story short is the community engagement process included some community members to help us give a thumbs up and prioritize different amenities, and these were the ones that really rose to the top for being a good fit for the space, being affordable, and fitting well within the envelope of the land of the park itself.
Okay. Can I have a copy of that?
Sure.
Perfect.
Trustees comments?
So just two little comments. One is you talked about the play structures being either wood or metal, and I don't know if you can make play structures out of plastic wood or that kind of thing, whether that holds up, but the maintenance sure is less. So anyway, that's just something I wanted you to put in your thinking whatever hat. And the other is, I don't know, the shelter looked very tailored, and that's lovely, but I also know that we were finally able to build bathrooms when we looked at them as prefab, and so if there's any kind of prefab stuff that can be adapted for that shelter and cause a lot of cost savings, that would be a thing I'd be really interested in seeing, then just tweak it a little bit.
Maybe I'll go through my questions then. So just in terms of the landscaping around the play areas, I think there was part of the surfaces were wood fiber. Is that correct? Now, anything that has wood, I get concerned with wind. And so are those things going to be staying in place? And
So EWF is what it's called, engineered wood fiber. And that's what is up here right now. We are going to go ahead and include it for these two lower play areas. That's really our only choice that's out there. I mean, there's more expensive options, which is pour-in-place surfacing, which is the rubberized surfacing that you may see out of play areas. It gets very pricey. And then the other option is to do like a pea gravel, but it's not really considered ADA accessible. So because these are lower topography-wise, we're really hoping that this area will screen this, and we know there's still going to be wind that comes across there. But the whole idea is if this blows, it blows down into the pits, and we understand there's probably going to be some maintenance along here, but it's really our only surfacing that we can do in our play areas.
You said the prevailing wind going that way.
Yeah.
all right.
What about crumb rubber too?
I'm sorry?
There's a crumb rubber product also, I thought.
Yeah, there is. There's a, it's recycled tires is what it is. You can do that. There's been, over the years, we've used it in different places. We can't really say we've had a real happy client in any of the cases. There's a couple of things. It gets hot. It tends to be kind of smelly. Some people complain that it's dirty. But that is an option out there. But it really, to be honest with you, I don't think it blows a whole lot less than EWF.
Thanks.
Yeah.
And then in terms of the concrete, is that, you showed different colors of the concrete. Is that actually going to be different colored concrete out there, or is that just for
That was more for
demonstration?
illustration, yeah. We want to do some colored concrete, but due to budget, we're trying to limit it really around those areas that we, like around the benches, you know, those areas right through there. But really, it was meant for illustration, just to show you guys the delineation between the different loops.
Okay, and then you discussed possible metal features. When will you come to a conclusion of
Whether or not we're going to do them?
if and what they would be?
Yeah. Right now we're getting pricing for everything, so we need to make sure as we're designing that it fits within the budget. So we just, as in yesterday, got a couple of different things for pricing. So I need to put everything together, compile it, and just see where we're at with everything. We know for sure the backstop is going to be good, so we can do the metal detailing that we did along the backstop, as well as the metal, a little bit of customizing with the shelter. The one thing that's out there are the metal sculptures, the metal art along the kite walk. We need to take a closer look at that and just make sure. But we're hoping, just in our past experience, it's affordable.
Okay. In terms of the shelter, it's probably too expensive, but would it ever make sense to orient it so that it would have the ability to apply solar to the top of it for electrical use?
That's definitely an option, but you're right, it would be an expense and cost. It's a pre-manufactured structure, so we're trying to use what's out there and just customizing a little bit with what I showed you in the detailing. To do a solar panel in there would take, quite honestly, it may take an architect to come on board so that they can set up that roofing system, or we would check into the manufacturer and see if it's something they know anything about.
Okay. In terms of maintenance that was brought up, so we talked about the engineered wood Fiber?
Mm-hmm.
What other maintenance costs? How long do these plastic structures last, and how often would we have to anticipate to replace them, or
You're talking about the
or
play
the composite,
equipment.
or all,
Yeah.
those things?
And they're not
the
plastic.
dumpster,
They're
or
metal.
whatever.
Yeah, they're metal. They range anywhere from, you can see metal out on sites that are out there since the 60s, but they say a warranty is about 15 to 20 years,
Okay.
25 years. So it's really, quite honestly, you see fading before really the structure itself. So they're all pretty durable.
Okay, so not a lot of maintenance
No.
expense to that.
No.
Okay.
No.
And then moving west to the ball field, so you mentioned the orientation of the horseshoe pits. I think a lot of ball fields are like to be oriented a different direction than what's described there. I think maybe it's due to topography, but it'd be better to orient it to the north as opposed to the south.
And we looked at that over and over and over again. It's really because the site is constraining in terms of the shape and the size and how big it is. So we're really limited, but we did investigate that.
Okay.
Definitely.
And the final skinning of the ball field is, I noticed you didn't have a catcher's area, so I assume that there would be some final design work to that. Is that true, or it looked like there was grass back there? I suppose.
Right. Yeah. And again, it's not meant to be a program field. It's meant to be just a pickup game, if you want to even call it that, or practice. So what
Well,
you see.
I'd love to see this as at least a practice area for
Right.
T-ball and maybe machine pitch. So you might as well, I guess, when you're looking at it, perhaps see if there's needs any more additional work behind
You're
that.
talking right here.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then you said about bringing power out to the field.
Mm-hmm. We do have power that's going to be about right here. So
Okay.
you can set up a pinching machine.
Okay.
Yep.
And then in terms of the backstop is there, but is there a dugout, for lack of a better word, to keep the T-ballers from running into the street?
No, there is not. We are right at the toe of the slope right here. So we have pulled it back as far as we can go. And again, we want to put a couple of benches in just for this side of it, for seating and things like that, but that's the extent of it.
Because I think it would be clearly advantageous to have some place to, if you were practicing and you had people sitting on the bench, we're talking T-ballers, and they're, I think, easily distracted. And so it'd be nice, if possible, and maybe it's not possible, to have a way to corral them somehow.
Can I just address that quickly? Because we did spend quite a lot of time on it at the Planning Commission, and we had a lot of dads in there with kids who play ball. And the importance of having a safe place for kids to sit, where you can say, go over there behind the backstop, and there are limitations on doing it on the along 76th, but on that area to the north, there's plenty of room. So the direction was that we could easily put ample benches along behind there, as many as are needed. So that was discussed in length.
Yeah. I just would hate to have the kids behind the backstop and then run back into Sycamore Street. So maybe it's not possible, but when this is coming back around, maybe explore it a little bit more. I mean, it looks like it's been fully vetted, but that's the concern I have. I think those were my questions.
And I have one more.
Trustee Williams?
The teen area enlargement here, I'm kind of confused on how the skateboard
Yeah. Can we run
works.
through it again?
Yeah. It seems to me that
There it is.
it just runs right into the boulders.
You're talking these boulders right up here?
No, the boulder.
The boulder, the climbing
There
wall.
we go.
We went through this in ProStack quite a bit and talked to different experts, I'll call it that, and we understood there was a certain distance. They need a straight running length to get to be able to, I'll call it, mount these skate rails through here. So really, if you start here and run this distance, you're good. Again, it gives you enough time to slow back down again before it becomes, we tried to find a balance, quite honestly, and not put a whole entire walk along that lane, but find the minimum amount that's needed to get that run so they can use that skateboard wall.
So if you're climbing on that boulder and you see someone coming right at you, wouldn't that be a little unnerving?
It's farther than you think.
Okay.
It is.
What
I
is the
promise you.
distance?
It's 1 inch equals, what is that? Actually, it's about 30 or 40 feet. There we go.
10 feet.
Yeah.
10.
And then this is EWF. This is actually a play pit.
Right.
So you're going to have your EWF, and then your feature is right here. So there's quite a bit of distance across there.
More than 10 feet?
It's probably about 20. I mean, if you go from here, it depends on which way you run it. Again, you're probably about 10, 15 feet, if I were to guess, through there. And then up here, it's much longer. So we really, quite honestly, saw them coming down from here and running it this way instead of going back. It just depends on the skater.
And then what is the distance between those steel edges and the ping pong table?
So here it's a little tighter, but we wanted to get an activity in there. Again, it's probably about 5, 10 feet, maybe 10 feet at the most. But you're probably looking at more like 5 feet, 5
So-
to 7 feet.
Am I visualizing this incorrectly? You're coming down on your skateboard and you jump and mount the steel edge,
here.
right?
Right.
And then you come flying down and off of it, right?
Right.
Okay. How often do they miss? I mean, I'm just visualizing, missing and hitting the table instead, or not slowing down and, bam, now I'm where the boulders.
Have you ever seen them do
climbers.
it in real? Have you seen?
Yeah,
somebody do it?
I have. It just feels a little constricting.
Okay, first of all, this is a seawall, so it is 18 inches to 20 inches tall along here. So it's going to be about right here. So there is a barrier right there, and then this elevation is just is a little bit higher. So it drops down, and then this is steps, and then drops down below. So along with topography and elevation, you do have this concrete wall that's going to be right here, and then this is just a little bit higher.
Shannon, what are those triangles?
These right here, that's a hatch for showing concrete. It's just to say that that's concrete, and this down here is pressure fines. It's a graphic thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So go off the right side of that. What does that adjoin to?
This right here,
Yeah.
that goes right up here to that shelter.
Okay, so if
Yeah.
my grandmother is walking down to, or my son's grandmother is walking down to see my son's skateboard, and she's on that sidewalk, does she have to compete with the kids building up steam to get on top of that thing?
Potentially. Yeah. Oh, are you talking this one here? Are you talking this one here?
Yeah,
This
that
one
one
here
is-
is separate. This one gets you right down. And this master plan is.
And is it a declining grade? Like, can they
It's
really
sloping
get going?
down. It's sloping down a little bit, yeah, because it drops in grade naturally on the site. So,
As a mother, and then now putting on the trustee hat,
sure.
to me, we thought about a skateboard park, and now we're just downsizing to a wall. And it seems like either all or nothing. And if you are going to do this wall, I think it should be separate from any possibility of little kids playing or
Grandma.
elderly. It just scares me. I don't know. I'm just visualizing, and I don't know if I'm visualizing correct, but it worries me.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I understand your fears of planning commission. It's some of the same, and we did in ProStack. But it's this is a common feature in most of the parks now. A full skate park would have cost almost as much as the entire project. This is meant to be a small neighborhood feature. It's more focused on having an area where kids can congregate and have some things to do while they socialize and meet.
And I don't.
It's very similar to similar amenities that are in place in Whitetail Park and Lafayette and so forth. And
I don't have a problem with the actual feature. I have a problem with the feature being integrated with other features like the ping pong table and the climbing structure. I'm just thinking as a kid or an adult or an elderly or whatever, and you're playing ping pong, and it's just a little unnerving as you're playing ping pong, seeing someone come flying, and I mean, it's just.
But that's not,
it doesn't
it's not
go
a
together.
racing feature. I mean, it's more like, it's similar in some ways. It'll be better, obviously. But it's similar to the small feature we have at South Pool.
But that's separate, and there's no other, it's not integrated with any other activities. So
Right, but there,
I feel safe over there.
Trustee Skumas?
And I was just going to say, I really like the fact that things were clustered. I think when you have a thing over here, and a thing over here, and a thing over here, none of them gets enough critical mass of people and excitement to get any of them used very well. At least that's what I seem to see. Yeah. So anyway, I like the clustering.
well, there
Totally
certainly was
agree
a lot
with
of
that.
discussion about that.
Except for the safety of that one piece.
And I think it's low enough that it doesn't seem that unsafe. It's not one of these, you have to be super grade and all that.
I mean, the other thing is that we can put a sign, since we've got a lot of signs up here, say, "Grandmas, proceed at your own risk." You know, I don't know.
Just
Yeah. Another thing could be actually to terminate that, speed ramp. Trust me, I've got sons. They're gonna be going for it. And move the rock climbing feature, and you can connect it with a short path off the ping pong area or whatever, to where actually the skating thing terminates. Maybe goes uphill and slows down.
Just to kind of give you a little bit of background, we did a lot of back and forth in terms of what teens would like to do in an area like this. So really, again, the thought was that the ping pong table or the table tennis would be something the kids would get into, as well as the fitness station, as well as skateboarding. So we were trying to combine a lot of things for that age group in one area. We also have the slack line, which I forgot to bring that up in the master plan, which is located right here too. So again, more for the older, but the younger kids can do it too. It's a challenge.
I'm glad to have anything we can to draw the teens. So.
And also a lot of discussion about boy-girl. We wanted to cluster these things so that both boys and girls could congregate and have something for any of them to do. So it was a lot of talk about that.
So my only thoughts are just, I mean, if you want to keep all the features, that's great. I think that's wonderful, and I like all the features. It's just, are they safe? That would be mine.
Trustee Hansen?
Want to confirm on the ball field, I see 200-foot outfield. Were we able to move the infield more to the west, that we did have a full 200 feet from home plate to the boulders?
No, we won't. I mean, that is at the toe of the slope. We have maybe, I think at the most 2 feet where this backstop is and the toe of the slope.
Where's 200 feet then?
Because I've studied this pretty good. The 200 is, boulder is pretty much dissected. It's about 200 at the left field, right around there, it'll be a little around 185 feet. And then as you, of course, go down, this will be like 210, somewhere in that, over 200 feet, and of course, all the way down there.
So can you reorient the boulders, though, so it's just like 200 feet all the way around?
Well, we could. We'd rather not, because then it cuts into this very valuable multipurpose field here, and we'd like to maintain. Now, you know, if you look, for example, at the, we looked at the other fields in the area. For example, if you go up to the North Boulder Little League field, those 4 fields, the 2 fields on the eastern side, there are 2 fields on the eastern side and 2 fields west. The 2 fields on the eastern side essentially have a 180-foot outfield fence all the way around. I mean, it's not uncommon. 180 is very, very common for the younger age group fields. So all we'll have is a very brief area here where it'll drop to 185, and will essentially be
I guess
200.
my thinking is that you actually might have more of a field if you pull them in from. I mean, I think 185 is fine for t-ball. You know, they're not going to be knocking it out of the park, but you know, wrapping it around on the south side, you actually give yourself more playing space.
You mean to wrap the
boulders.
But except when this field's not, the idea is to leave this, to have essentially two multi-purpose fields where one of them is baseball, has a baseball capability. So anything we do to move those boulders will ruin this as a multi-purpose field. This gets a lot of use right now. You'll go out there almost any day and you'll see teams using this, teams using this. Sometimes you'll see a team using this side and two teams practicing here, and you'll see kids playing baseball. Or out there today, I saw a father and two sons playing pitch and bat, right there.
Mm-hmm.
So this will enable all of those capabilities will be maintained. It'll have maximum flexibility, and we think it's the best use. But those are field decisions that staff can make and adjust very easily as we go forward if there's a need.
And then the fences are described differently in the packet, and they're going. The fence is going past the bases, and here it's going halfway out. Do you know how far the fence is actually going?
Oh,
yeah.
So we've been playing with this a little bit to see. What we thought we would do is do a 20-foot and then come out. I think it's. I'm going to tell you probably something wrong. I believe it's 10 feet that comes out on both sides, because we don't need to do a full-blown backstop for that age group. And if we can save a little bit of costs, we're going to.
It depends on how accurate the person is throwing the ball to third base. So I would strongly encourage making it farther, because you don't want the ball rolling out into the street, it's downhill, so there's topography, but.
And I know we've looked at different examples, and we're right at the point of trying to decide. I know we talked about going with a height. We talked about the height just today. We were talking about the height of what we want those wing fences to be, the wing backstop to be. But we know the back here would be 20 feet tall.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And, I don't want to reiterate the point, but if you can make the field even smaller and the ability to put a dugout on both sides, I think it would be, for just a pure safety standpoint, I think it would be very beneficial. So.
Okay.
Board comments?
Just
Public
one-
comment about any of it?
Did you have it?
I was just, my boys died to have a dugout, and I love dugouts myself, but I'm wondering if there's not a little conflict there with attracting teams. And so there's that balance we've got to strike.
Right, and that's where the balance is just putting a couple of benches here. And I don't think we can even put it back here.
So, I guess the balance would be that if you're doing that, then you're definitely not going to play any team sports there. So that's a conscious decision that we're making, is that we don't want teams to play there. Is that where we are?
Just practicing.
What's in? You mean whether it's programmed or unprogrammed?
That term is not very well defined. So
Yeah.
program might be practice.
Well,
Program might be.
Yeah, when I say program, I mean the town's programming games and practices there. But you're talking about just if a coach has set up for practice there or something like that.
Well, I could even see like T-ball being, T-ball teams within the town being able to play there. And what we've said here is that, no, you can't have a town T-ball teams playing there because you won't have those facility. So that's a conscious decision we're making, that not to allow for that.
I understand that.
Yeah.
So,
Any public comment regarding this? Or Trustee Gregorus?
George, go ahead and go first. No, go ahead.
We're safe tonight. My dad's not here. But on the ball, the T-ball, as you get older, it is really entertaining if if you're into sports at all, to go down and watch the little guys play t-ball, teams-wise. To go down and watch kids that are unorganized, there's no entertainment for the grown-ups. So if we have a field like this, I would like to see it programmable for the t-ball or the coach pitch or the machine pitch, because it is amusing to me. It's something that I go watch little guys play even up behind safe place. I don't care when they get up 12 and 14. When they're the little guys and somebody hits the ball and the little guy gets it or the little girl gets it and they look and they race them to the base. We don't throw it no more, we race them to the base. So if we don't program that to this, to have some organized t-ball or coach pitch, we're wasting a lot of money. And if you go up to Sagamore and watch the kids get on the bus, we have no shortage of kids for t-ball. We got a couple bus loads every morning. But so I would like to see some whatever. Now I guarantee my dad would like to see some programmable baseball for little guys, not just pickup. You know what I'm saying? I would, and I'd enjoy it. I could walk down and watch instead of having to drive all the way to the same place. So I mean, this is a great idea, but I would really love to see programmable t-ball or programmable coach pitch, and actually have two teams come and have the dugouts and yeah, if you have to shorten the field up, shorten it up. You know, we're just talking the little guys. You know, when they're little like that, they're lucky to hit it out of the infield. So if we got a shorter field, so and the shorter field keeps the older guys, the 11 and 12-year-old coaches that are coaching them kids, it discourages them from coming because it is too short. So you kind of win, you kind of keep it open for the little guys anyway. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Gorgas.
So my final comments on Town 9 is that I'm strongly in favor of a dugout. It doesn't have to be Yankee Stadium, but I think it warms it up. And as far as the safety issue, I guess we're just from a different generation. My mom was when I played outside, don't get hit by a car, come home when it gets dark. That was it. That was the only two. So I feel sometimes we go overboard. Playgrounds are meant for kids to play, to run. If you're in a skateboard and if you don't scrape your knee or your elbow, you're doing something wrong. So I appreciate the helicopter moms, their concerns about safety, but really, I'm perfectly fine with your design, I guess, is what I'm saying. And I like the clustering. I agree with Trustee Skuma. If we have them two separate, then I don't think it's going to create what we're trying to create here. So I'm fully on board with the clustering the way you've designed it.
Okay.
And just for the record, I'm not concerned about the skateboarder. I'm concerned about the ping pong player.
Crash into one another.
Trustee Skumatz.
So, pardon my ignorance, but do dugouts have to be along the baselines, or could a dugout not be behind the backstop? Does it have to actually physically be on the line? I mean, I know that's traditional, but is it required?
I mean,
Can't envision how else it would be, but
I
maybe.
know.
you can have by third base and first base, somewhere between first.
Or all
home,
along the third
first base,
baseline?
home,
You
and
have
third
to.
base.
Farther out, yeah.
Yeah, you can.
I know that's traditional, but is the actual rule?
You want them to be able to see the game
So,
from where they're sitting.
I'm
too,
just saying,
right?
couldn't they both be along the third baseline?
Oftentimes they're behind the fence.
That's what I was talking.
without the webbing that I think's been proposed. So
We have plenty of
Anyway.
room to put as many benches as we like back there. There's room for that. It could be, our standard town benches. We were thinking of starting with one or two. If there's enough demand, you could actually put a bleachers similar to what we put in at Williams Field, if you recall. And we can make this. We can provide as much viewing space as we ultimately want to put there. This ended up being essentially unused land up here. We wanted that buffer. We originally talked about putting a teen amenity up there, decided to keep it down here. So there's plenty of area up here to work with, but down here, we're really constrained. I mean, the grade begins to go up right at this fence. There's no place to have comfortable, there's no place to position benches behind that fence, otherwise we'd do it.
Jim, are the benches for the players to sit or for fans?
Both. But these benches here would be primarily, we wanted to have, and the Planning Commission, as I said, we had a lot of discussion about that. They felt, and we agreed, it's important to have a bench behind a fence for safety reasons, so a coach can say to, or dad can say to his kids, go sit over there behind the fence, behind the backstop.
Mm-hmm.
But the point is, we can make that as elaborate as we want to spend as far as seating back there.
So to wrap up what I was trying to say, I agree with the mayor, and I'd like to see dugouts of a nature that would allow the kind of play he's talking about. And, 99.9% agreement with this plan, with that change, I don't think is too much to take. So I think I would like to see that as well as at least an option in the contract, if not something in.
And I guess Trustee Hanson, yes.
Just, I wanted to clarify, we're fine with the baseball, the outfield being 185 feet from home plate. And left field
honestly,
boulders.
for T-ball and little kids, it could be 150 feet. It doesn't really, because they can't
just as long as
hit
we're
it
clear.
that far.
And then as far as the skateboarding section, I don't see any issues at all with the climbing structure and the skateboarding. I do agree, though, with Trustee Williams that if the ping pong table is only 5 feet from that wall, that could be a problem, because if you've got a kid that's 5.5 feet tall and he's grinding a rail up there and he falls off, then he could easily fall into that ping pong table. So if it's beyond that, maybe 10 feet, then it's probably okay.
I guess my wrap-up comment is, one, thank you for the presentation. Thank you for ProStack for all their hard work. It's an incredible project. So, we're not all going to get exactly what everybody wants, but it's really been a well-thought-out process with a lot of public engagement and really well-done design. So I just wanted to thank everybody involved. Okay. With that brings us to item number 7, the consent agenda, and remaining on the consent agenda is approval of the minutes of the April 17th and April 23rd, 2012 board meetings, acceptance of the minutes of the Historical Commission and the Planning Commission and the Parks, Recreation, Open Space, and Trails Advisory Committee meetings. And that's it. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda by Trustee Gregoris, second by Trustee Williams. Discussion. We're not spending anything. All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you very much. That brings us to 8, adoption of a resolution approving a contract with Asphalt Specialties Company, Inc. for annual street maintenance and rehabilitation program. Mr. Magley.
Thank you, Mayor. We are getting to the heart of our construction season as things start to warm up. Alex Arnello, our Public Works Superintendent, and Martin Cobb, along with our consultants, have done quite a bit of work leading up to this to be able to give the recommendation to the board, and feel really confident that what we're proposing we can meet and get it within the budget that we're proposing and has been budgeted for this year. So with that, I'll let Martin and Alex put together a presentation for the board, and then we'll follow up with board questions and comments.
Good evening. Alex Arnell, Public Works Superintendent. I also have with me Jason Murray from J&T Consultants, and he'll answer anything that I can't when I get out of my area of expertise. So, as you recall, I started back in February, and the first thing they threw at me is get the annual street improvement project underway and start planning it, and we have to get it going this summer. So in preparation for that, I wanted to get familiar with what the town has done in the past. As you know, the town is a fairly young town. Most of the roads were built in the early 90s and are now getting to the point where they need rehabilitation to preserve and extend their life. And so I tried to put together some maps and data about when roads were built and then when rehabilitated. So this is kind of a graphic that shows what the town has done, and it's done a great job over the last 5 or 6 years in starting to rehabilitate its street system. Earlier, I know we've done overlays on Rock Creek Parkway. I think that was done in 2003 and 2004, so I know that was some major work that was done. But starting in 2006, Coal Creek, original Superior, was reconstructed. Didn't find anything in 07 and 08, but in 09 we had extensive, all green roads are roads that were overlaid and patched and so forth in 2009, and we had really good bid prices back then, so we were able to extend that work and get a lot of that work done. 2010, Indiana was reconstructed and overlaid, and original Superior, all the roads there were reconstructed. 2011, we started in Circle Park, did a slurry seal on a portion of Rock Creek Parkway, and did a slurry seal in Sagamore. So we really, you can see that, it's pretty extensive work that's been done in the last 5 or 6 years. So we wanted to build on that, and I started planning the next 5 or 6 years and trying to finish out some of the local streets and then get going on the collectors and the arterials. So for 2012, we'll talk about that in a minute here, but we'll be finishing work in Circle Park, starting in Creekside development, going up into the Arbors and Hillside areas in 13, in 2014, finishing Creekside and getting up into Waterford in 14, and then in 15, we're going to go back and do the portion of Indiana south of Rock Creek Parkway that we didn't do a couple of years ago, finish Indiana all the way down to from Colton to McCaslin, and then also Rock Creek Circle. So it's what's kind of slated for 2015. 2000 also 88th. In 2016, I want to get back on McCaslin, do an overlay. Also, for looking at medians or things on McCaslin, we'll have some time to plan, and that could be a larger project than just an overlay. And then in 17, get back on Rock Creek Parkway and on Colton and some of the roads in the marketplace that could be reaching their useful life. So that's kind of where we're headed, and this is kind of just a draft. I haven't had much time to really look at this, but this program was kind of built on in prior years. You'll be seeing that in the budget process. So for this year, I want to focus on some of the projects we're doing. In Circle Park, we're going to complete all the local streets that were done. We did a lot of concrete work last year in preparation for this project, so we'll complete the local streets. We won't get all of El Dorado done, which we couldn't go as far as we would like on El Dorado. That'll be done next year. And then start work on the Creekside and specifically Clinton Circle to get started on the Creekside development. And then a preservation project, I'm proposing that we look at McCaslin. It's at the point where if we start doing some major maintenance on it, we can prolong its life and not have to do an overlay for 5, 6, 7 years down the road. So McCaslin would propose more of a preservation project than an overlay, a major project. Also, there's another element here. The town takes requests for concrete repair throughout the year, and then we try to incorporate those requests into the improvement project. So we have about 13 requests that we went out and looked at and deemed that they needed some work, so they're included in this project as well. So for the 2012 project, these, it's hard to show up, but Rand, Dillon, Easterbrook, Cedar Ridge, Graydon are all projects planned for this year. And I'll explain what we're going to be doing to those.
Holyoke is in there, right? Holyoke is the
Yes.
GHI, right? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
And Clayton Circle. So I want to explain what's going on. I came here and I started looking at these roads and driving them and seeing the condition they were in. Maybe I shouldn't have taken this job, no. But, as you're well aware, we have poor low-bearing soils in much of Superior. And they have high clay content. They're subject to expansion when water is introduced. the roads did have a full-depth asphalt section. What that means is, a lot of times when you build a road, you have a road base of 10, 12 inches, and then on top of that, you put, 3, 4 inches of asphalt. In this case, they didn't really have a road base. They just prepared the subgrade. We don't know how well it was prepared, but they put a full-depth 6 to 9 inches of full-depth asphalt. So it's a thicker asphalt section, but not much of a base. And so that's what we're working with in this part of Superior. So there was little subgrade preparation. Subgrade in a lot of areas is saturated, and we have groundwater. If you go around, you see some pumps working, and they're discharging into the street, and that's flowing under the asphalt, getting into the subgrade. We have landscape irrigation that flows off the lawns into the gutters and then seeps into the subgrade. So when we looked at last year when they were doing some of the patching, they found that the lower level asphalt was deteriorating, and the asphalt's deteriorating and the subgrade is failing. So we have a lot of those roads that we have problems with. So I'll show you some of those here. These are sample locations. This is on Coleridge Drive. You can see around the curb where we have the irrigation flowing in. We have cracking right near the gutter. Hard to see the cracking, but we have alligator cracking. We have traverse cracking here. 30, 40, 50% cracking and failures on particular streets. This is Dillon Way, again, a lot of alligator cracking, traverse cracking, and longitudinal cracking. This was a repair that, you can see the concrete work was done. A lot of cracking on these roadways, a lot of subgrade failures. This is El Dorado right by Coleridge, and you have a patch going across here, you have another patch, you have a slurry seal, but now you can see the reflective cracking through the slurry seal. So we've patched this several times, and it keeps failing us. Here's El Dorado. That looks great. We have a lot of alligator cracking and this type of thing that's going to continue to get worse if we don't do anything. Cedar Ridge Circle, again, a lot of cracking. So I want to talk about what we've done in the past and what we're recommending to be done this year. Our typical procedure methodology in the past has been in the areas that are failing, we'll patch those, we'll cut out, saw cut, the failing area, haul that stuff out, get down to, the failing subgrade, find the problem, maybe bring in some geofabrics, compact it, and patch to match the adjacent area, and then overlay the whole street. So the problems we've had is that we end up patching a high percentage of the street. Sometimes 30, 40, 50% of the street we're patching. We have planned areas with a patch, but once we get in there, the areas keep growing and growing, and so there's a lot of field decisions going on. Where do we stop this? Is it ever the water's pouring out? How do we get the water to stop? So we're finding a lot of those things in the field, and then we overlay the whole road, and the areas that we don't patch, we have reflective cracking for the cracking that wasn't taken care of. So we got kind of an inferior product. And if you look at some of the areas that were done last year, the areas that were reconstructed are holding up fine. The areas where we just overlaid the existing asphalt, we already started cracking, and it's only a year later. So I think after looking at that, I said, well, I got with our engineer, Jason, and our geotechs, there must be a better way. And so what we're recommending here is what's called a full-depth reclamation technique. And what happens is that we have a machine that's called a Bowman machine that gets in there and mills and grinds up both the existing asphalt and 2 or 3 inches of the subgrade. So grinding out together, we add emulsion or other mixes to mix that stuff up. We may add fly ash if it's really wet to dry it out. So what we're trying to do is to build a good base, and then we're going to mix that up, and then we're going to come in with compactors and pound it down into the subgrade to make sure we have a good base to start with. And then once we have that, we'll come back and apply 6 inches of asphalt and have brand new asphalt surface. So we're hoping to get a stabilized subgrade and base that is a good structure upon which the new asphalt driving surface could be applied. And we're hoping that this is going to be a technique that's going to provide a much longer wearing life than we've had in the past. No other questions? So at least
If you don't
Trustee
mind.
Scrimmage?
Great. So the training that we got sort of by watching what happened on Indiana made it pretty clear that part of the problem was that there was this issue of where the clay came up and where there was, better material underneath, and that was sort of the underlying problem, that we didn't always hit the right strata with the right preparation between those, bentonite, whatever it all was. But by crossing those strata, we were making it so that we were forever going to have these humps and whatever. I understand you're trying to solve a little bit different problem here, but is that 2 or 3 inches of pulverizing going to take? Is that only going to work in certain areas, and in other areas we're going to have to do something different?
Well, I mean, we've been debating this about, are we going to run into some problems? Are we going to run into so much water that we can't handle it? And so we're anticipating a lot of those things happening, and that we're going to have to monitor this and watch the operation and make sure that we have the right mix of material that's going back down.
And you do that with core samples or something, so you won't have to make the field decisions?
Well, we have core samples, we have GPR, we know what asphalt GPR is the ground penetrating radar that gives us the depth of asphalt. So we know the depth of asphalt on all these streets.
Yes, the stuff under the asphalt I'm worried about.
Stuff we're worried about as well.
I'm sure you are.
But what we're hoping is that we're taking the asphalt layer that we already have, mixing it with some emulsion and other materials, and then pounding down into the base. So that's what we're putting on top of those soils, and that's what we're hoping will provide the stability that we need to prepare, bring back the new asphalt layer.
And my last follow-up bit is this technique been tried somewhere else and it works substantially better, or is this an experiment?
This is not an
it's
experiment.
all bad, but
full depth reclamation is a technique that's used throughout the country. It's not like we're trying something new. It's just a technique that we felt would be applicable to this situation, given the problems that we've seen in the past.
And with good results elsewhere.
Yes. Thank you. Again, we have really some bad soils, as you well know, and so this is
seems to be our fundamental problem. Yes. Sorry.
And I've debated, maybe concrete streets. What do we do here? It's tough, and this is another way, another technique that we're hoping that will solve some of the problems that we've had in the past.
Trustee Hanson.
My question is similar to Trustee Skumat's, but is full depth reclamation, or can you compare full depth reclamation to what was done on Indiana last year when they pulled everything out, put in a road base, and then put in brand new asphalt? And then we were told that would solve the problems there for a long period of time. Is the hope that full depth reclamation will do the same or have the same results long term as what they did on Indiana?
Yes, and you got to recall, we don't have the traffic volumes and loads that we have on Indiana. Indiana's a collector street. These are local streets, so we have a little bit different situation. And we're not bringing in a whole lot of new base like they did in Indiana, as I understand. I wasn't around for that. I understand they brought in a whole lot of base. We're using the materials that are there. We're kind of compromising, balancing resource conservation and trying to use what we have in place and making that the stabilized base for the new asphalt that we're going to be bringing in.
Okay.
But it's similar to what we're doing on Indiana.
Okay.
But I think, I wasn't there exactly how much, believe they hauled off a lot of material as well.
I was under the impression that last year, the job that wasn't completed on El Dorado Circle was because of similar deterioration as what was on Indiana. So I'm just wondering, are we going to have the same results unless we do the same type of job that we did on Indiana, or is this full depth reclamation going to satisfy that?
This is very similar to what I think was done in Indiana, in that the existing surface is being pulverized and mixed in, and we're starting with a base that we hopefully is stronger than what was there now, and we're bringing in new asphalt on top of that.
Okay, and then cost difference, is there significant savings by doing full-depth reclamation as opposed to tearing out everything and putting a road base and?
I'm getting to it.
Okay.
Get to it. So that's a technique, and again, here's some of the benefits of this technique. It improves the structure significantly. You know, right now we have a poor subgrade, so we're hoping to get in there and establish a much better base than we had before. We're restoring the old pavement to the old surface to the desired profile. Right now, we've lost crown in some areas, so we're going to restore the crown that we want on the area so the water drains to the gutters and not into the middle. We're going to eliminate wheel ruts, eliminate potholes, irregularities, and rough areas. And we hope to have a uniform pavement structure when we're finished. We're going to eliminate all the cracking because we're taking up all the pavement. So all the alligator cracking, traverse, longitudinal cracking will be eliminated, and we'll have a much better ride quality. Frost susceptibility may be improved. The cost is equivalent. I'll give you some cost figures in a minute. And really the whole thing, the difference between patching and overlay and what we're doing here is we're setting up a production capability where the contractor is going to have the whole road and just, you know, tear up the asphalt, mix it up, and get big equipment in there. Rather than patching, you do a lot of hand work because you pull out the old stuff, you get in there with hand tools and so forth to repair a patch. We're getting in there with bigger equipment, so we have production capability to be able to reconstruct the road. We're conserving some resources in that we're utilizing materials on site by mixing in and pounding into the pavement and then bringing in the new asphalt. So we hope to minimize environmental impacts.
I have one question on that previous slide. Sorry. So this is a terminology, a wording thing, but maybe you can, frost susceptibility may be improved. Oops. Maybe improved sounds like it's happenstance, but do you mean it should be substantially improved? Is that really what maybe improved is after?
Because right now we're getting water in that subgrade.
Okay.
Okay, because it's so soft and the water's getting in, and what we're doing now is reworking all that subgrade and creating the space, and hopefully water is much lower than it is now. Right now, if you stick a pan in some of these cracks, I mean, you come up and you're coming up with water. Water is only a couple inches below. So we're hopefully getting the water further down, so we're not going to have that type of...
It just seemed like that terminology is underselling its potential improvement. Okay, thank you.
So we have drawbacks because what we want to do is give the contractor access to the road. We want to get all the vehicles out. We want the road torn, have them the ability to tear up the whole road, use their big equipment to do this process. So residents may not have access to their houses by vehicle access for a whole day. We're going to divide the project into usable segments so they can get into one segment and have room for parking vehicles on another segment and be able to get one done in each day and allow the residents to return to their houses at night. But you don't pave the next day. You want to get a bunch of segments ready for the paver to come in and do the pavement. So we may have that base unpaved surface there for up to a week while we get a bunch of roads ready to pave. And during that time we may have dust, we may have loose rock and so forth. We may have to haul off excess material because if you think of it, we're grinding up 6 or 8 inches and we're bringing another 6 inches in. We're hoping that we can pound a lot of into the subgrade, but we may have to haul some off. So those are the drawbacks. Okay, so here's the cost comparisons that we've done. Based on last year's prices, when we had a road that required had minimal failure, and I'm saying less than 20% patching, the per square yard cost was $28 per square yard to patch and overlay. Once we got over that, when we get over 20, 30, 40%, we were having a cost of $39 per square yard for those roads where we had major patching and reconstruction. With this FDR, based on this year's bid prices, they're coming in about $34 per square yard to get in there, redo the whole thing and bring in, up to 6 inches of new asphalt. So we're rolling dice, If these roads don't need a whole lot of patching, then maybe we're paying a little bit more. But if they do, we're paying less, but we're ending up with a much more uniform treated subgrade, and we have a new asphalt surface. So we have a product that I think is much better than what we had before. So that's the cost comparison that we've had pulled out from the bids that we've had both past year and this year.
Is there a chance that we're rolling the dice in the other direction, that we may not be doing enough in some areas as far as replacing everything?
There's, my fear is we get into an area with a lot of water. How do we get the water out? That's the biggest thing. But we have provisions for geofabrics and other things that we could do if we have those, bad spots. And we anticipate having those, and in our bid prices, we have allowances that we're going to find areas that are going to require more, to bring actual road base in, to import road base in, rather than just using the mixture that we have. Jason, can you help? Here's Jason Murray. Maybe you can provide any more line on that.
Jason Murray, J&T Consulting. What Alex says, if we knew what we didn't know, that would make it a lot easier. But we've put allowances in there for essentially bringing in some crushed concrete, bringing in some geofabric. We know that somewhere in Circle Park there's going to be areas that are probably wetter or worse than anticipated, so we made provisions within the bid to accommodate those. We're actually putting a drain in on one street to help out with some of the additional water. So.
Trustee Bennington.
So to anybody in this room, the question is, where is this water coming from? On my stretch, we had the exterior discharging, external discharging some pumps, and we were required by the town to actually connect them into the main drain. So has that been done in this area, or do we have underground streams? Last year, we paid a heck of a lot to replace a lot of concrete that had hairline cracks, thinking that anything we did to seal above would prevent the water from going down deep. Where's it coming from, and how much confidence do we have that anything we're doing?
I've only been here 3 months, but I've asked those same questions. I go around, I see some pumps discharging right into the gutter, and I get all, Martin and Dimitri and I have had these debates. Can we get this water into the regular sewer system? Can we get into the storm drain system? We know there's a couple areas that have under drains that we may be replacing in the roadway surface. So we know we have areas that we'll be putting in drains. But it's a big problem to get rid of that water. We have a lot of irrigation where people water all day long, and how do you stop that? It's a matter of education. But that's over the next few years. How do I get that water to stop ruining my roads, or your roads?
Right, because it seems like we're spending a great deal of the town's money treating the symptoms and not maybe getting to the core problem.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I think that's something that we have to address down the road. If you want to put this project on hold, these roads are going to fail. So, we're doing the best we can for what we're doing. We want to try this full-depth reclamation technique to see if it provides a better product than what we've had in the past. I think a lot of the roads what we've done in 2009, there were a lot of good overlays done at the right time period, and they were holding up pretty well. But you're right, the water that's getting into them are causing some of these failures.
And then my second question would be, only been on the town board for 2 years, and there have been two distinct approaches to the annual road program in those 2 years. And so maybe it goes to you, Matt, a little bit more. There are some fundamental changes I'm seeing in this approach this year to where we've been in the past. Can you sort of explain the reason we've decided to take a different tactic?
Well, there's two. There's the methodology we're using. We're also going through the traditional design bid contract basis. So it's not the GM approach that we had last year. We actually went through a competitive bid process for the actual project we had engineering plans done for all the roads, all the areas that we were going to be repairing and so forth, and they were competitively bid. So it's a different approach from designing and
I guess
actually
the
carrying out the
reason,
project.
my question is why? Apparently, there's been a strategic decision made to go a different way.
Well, part of the problem is we've had, turnover in staff at key positions. So one of the key things to do is keep Martin and Alex here for the next 5 to 10 years at least. The second thing is, Alex brings years of experience with him in the position, with knowledge of, different techniques, and I think based on what he saw when he first got started here, started on this specific project, in addition with the experience of J&T, that they feel like this is a good technique to use for the clay soils that we have. And they've done their work leading up to this, being out in the field, looking at the roads, looking at the different trouble spots, to where they feel comfortable bringing this forward, which is something we heard last year from the board. I think at the end of that street program, we heard, we want to make sure that our staff is out there looking at the different conditions and coming up with the best solution. And that's what we've done this year.
So I'm going to get real specific. Last year, we heard a lot, if I'm calling the name correct, maximum price contracts.
Yeah.
And we heard a specific type of warranty that we were requiring that I thought was longer term than your standard warranty. And I'm not hearing anything about maximum price contracts in this, and I have a question about warranties. What kind of warranties are we getting?
So we had a discussion prior to work starting up towards this project on whether we were going to do another guaranteed maximum price contract, or we were going to just do the typical design bid contract. And after discussions with all of us, we decided that the typical design bid was the way to go this year. And depending on, we'll evaluate it at the end of this season, see how it goes, and then decide what we're going to do next year. But for this year, this is the direction we decided to go.
So you haven't wholesale dismissed them ever for the future?
No.
Okay.
And the warranty is it's a 2-year
2 years.
warranty, which is our standard warranty for the town. And, we've looked at,
Getting a look from Skumats again.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I know it's an issue for you.
Yes, it
and
is.
we've looked at getting longer term warranties, 5 years or something like that, but the bids, the pricing that comes in at that level is doesn't make sense for the project, because we end up doing a lot less for the budgeted amount that we have.
But Trustee Pennington, you're absolutely right about the water. We have this water coming in. We have to figure out that solution, and unfortunately, that's going to take some time. It's not going to be done overnight. And I have some ideas, but you put it in the sewer system, you got to treat it and so forth. So you have costs that way. We got to figure out a different system, because it's ruining our roads, and I have to come up with, our utilities people come up with a solution, but it's hard to do that in 2 months.
Couple of questions. So, just in terms of the best practices, so there were some. Well, I'll step back. So, I know that Kurt did tried a couple of different slurry seals on Rock Creek Parkway.
Mm-hmm.
I think he did 4 different types.
Right.
Was there any difference in the performance of any of that?
I thought so. I looked at those, and actually I'm recommending the double slurry seal on McCaslin, and that's what we're doing up there. And the slurry seal, what it's doing is just trying to provide a new surface. It doesn't provide any structural capacity to the roadway. It fills the cracks and provides a better wearing surface, and that's what we're doing on McCaslin. It's appropriate for McCaslin. For these streets.
Oh, no. I just am getting to the McCaslin one. So one of those applications seemed to be better than the others.
Right. I thought from a driving quality, we did some microsurfacing, and I just looked at that, and I didn't think it was as smooth and provided as good a rideable surface as the double slurry seal.
Okay.
So I looked at those extensively, and that's why I picked one for McCaslin.
And then in terms of the interface between the gutter and the asphalt, is there a best practice of how that is done, or that's, you just...
We talked about this extensively, because what happens, the water comes off the lawns, and it comes off down from the sump pumps, goes over the gutter in between the seam and the asphalt, so it gets between the seam, and then it really, right along the gutter area, softens the subgrade, and then along come trash trucks and so forth to pound it in. So you can see a lot of those areas are failing. So we talked about an under drain system, but where you really want to put it is on the backside of the walk, or back of the gutter, and that's all in the landscaping, so that's not a good solution. We do have some right on the street side of the gutter, and along Rand Way is a place where it's holding up, and we talked about putting that in this practice. But what happens, we're compacting things. Do we build another trench, and now we've created a discontinuity between the good base that we've just created, and we put this trench in, another discontinuity. So we talked about that. We had a long discussion, and our engineer's recommendation was not to put that everywhere. There are places that we are going to put the under drain system in, but that's a situation, and really the solution would have been under drain on the lawn side of the curb.
Okay.
And not to crown the roads anymore? I mean, it always seems like the roads are really flat, and I don't know, where I grew up, the roads are all crowned, and...
We'll have the crown, and hopefully the gutters should take care of the water, but now we're getting so much water, it's spilling, past the gutters into the seam where the roadway, the gutter and the asphalt meet.
Okay. And in the report, there was a recommendation of one oil versus the other oil in the asphalt. Is that a significant issue in terms of performance?
Well, we had a significant cost issue, and one oil is, rated down to 22 degrees below zero, and it's often used up in the mountain areas where you get very cold temperatures. The typical oil that we use in this area is rated at -5 degrees, and we felt that the cost difference, we wanted to cost that. If it came in very close, we would have gone with the lower temperature oil, but the cost was almost $100,000 difference, and so we felt that given that we're down here, we didn't feel it warranted that additional expense.
Okay. And then in terms of, I saw the timeline for the street reconstruction. So there are some areas that seem like they're having significant problems. One is up on Indiana on the way up to El Dorado Cave, which is turning into a roller coaster up there. Is there anything that can be done about that prior to 2015 or whenever that was?
Yes, that's been on Martin's list, and there's others like Coal Creek that's also on the list. And when I get through the budget, I'll show you where we do have some dollars, and maybe we can address those issues.
And then I should have forewarned you on this one, but in terms of the Indiana reconstruction, south of the elementary school, there's water still coming out of the road in the middle of the street there. Do you have, I guess I don't answer this question right now because it's not fair, but if someone could just look at that, because it's causing me great consternation that there's water coming out of the middle of the street there. So,
where?
It's in Indiana.
On the repaired part.
There's a crack there. So.
Could I maybe extend that request to, can we have a report on how that actually is holding up, that repair? I know Chris said, I thought it was doing well. I don't know if it's doing well.
I've looked at the area, the area that was reconstructed is holding up, very well.
Yeah.
It's the area that was just overlaid where we're seeing a lot of the cracking. That's my understanding from what was done. So I think the reconstructed portions are holding up. It's the area that was just patched and overlaid where you've seen that reflected.
I'm with the mayor. I thought the water coming out was on the new part, so maybe I don't have my boundaries right.
It causes me probably the same anxiety you do. Is water coming out of, a road seems like
I've seen several of those roads, water just bubbling out.
We'll go on through.
Okay. Just to continue on, McCaslin is at a point where I feel it needs to have a slurry seal done just to preserve its life. This is, some of the cracking's done. McCaslin has a rural section, so it has a place for the water to grow. It has a good crown, and the water goes into the roadside ditches. It's starting to experience some cracking. There's polished aggregate, so it just needs, a new surface to protect it for the next several years. Here's an area near Indiana that needs to be patched, so we're recommending, patch and overlay. Just to show you why we're doing this, this is a chart that shows pavement condition index. You've probably seen these. It's a function of time. So once you start with a new road, because of water, sun, traffic, and so forth, the pavement starts to deteriorate. And it deteriorates slowly in the first years of life, but once it reaches a certain time, 15, 20 years into its life, it starts to fail rapidly. And so if you catch do a rehabilitation here and bring the condition up, and then it starts deteriorating again, it's not as costly as if you wait here. It's going to cost you 5 times if you reach this point versus that point. So I think we're catching McCaslin right at a good portion of time to provide some new surface on it and protecting the cracks that do exist. So I'll just go back through this quickly. So our technique is to do patching, especially in Indiana, crack fill all the major cracks, and then come back through with a double slurry seal. So just to summarize here for this particular program, we have a contract tonight. Again, we went through a competitive bidding process. Asphalt Specialties was the low bidder. So with their bid, we do have some allowances for some unforeseen items. It's about $125,000 worth of allowances. So we do have some contingency. It's not a big contingency. We have $25,000 allocated for some crack sealing later on this summer. We have about $70,000 for pothole repair. Now, we've already used some this year, but we could draw upon some of those funds for Indiana and possibly Coal Creek, where we're having some failures to get us by until we can do some major rehabilitation down the road. So that's how we have $2.2 million budgeted, and so this is how we're allocating those funds. So with that, we had we have 4 bids. There's quite a bit of difference, $250,000, $300,000 between the low bidder and the second low bidder. We have done some evaluations and found some issues with that contractor, but we feel we can manage that by stepping up our monitoring and so forth, making sure we have the proper tests done, and make sure our geotech's really heard on that contractor. So we're recommending that the bid of Asphalt Specialties for $1,905,000 be accepted, and that the town enter into a contract with them.
May I ask a question?
Yep.
The bidding process divided the projects into A, B, and C, correlating to the different areas, and Asphalt Specialty came in the cheapest on A and B, and another subcontractor underbid them by $44,000 on the Calmonte to 128 section. Is it ever something that we would do to give one vendor 2 parts and the other vendor the third part?
We would prefer to have the same contractor in this case and not have to.
Yeah, from a management perspective, it makes it really hard, for one. And then for 2, if you start breaking it up, your pricing goes up.
So we wanted the base bid. Schedule A was the base bid, and we wanted to make sure we had enough money to do Schedule A, and then we added Schedules B and C to, if we got better pricing, to be able to do those as well. And so the town manager felt with these prices, even though we're real close to our $2.2 million budget, And if we have some major problems, we may be back, but we think we can do all this work for the $2.2 million that I described here.
I'm intrigued by your last comment that we've had issues with them in the past. What?
Not us. You want, JT, you want to?
Sure. They're an organization that we've worked with, on and off projects over the last 10 years, and just part of the process of verifying the data was we checked references. And there have been certain projects where quality of materials has been an issue. Make sure that the proper asphalt that's spec'd that you're paying for is delivered to the site. Sometimes you don't always get the asphalt that you think you are. It may just be a problem of the wrong truck goes to the wrong site, but that can make a big difference out in the field. So there have been those types of issues, but typically just through diligent quality control, making sure that we're going to the asphalt plant to make sure that the right oil is going into your asphalt. We're going to the first week we're going to do numerous tests on the asphalt to make sure that you're actually getting what you're paying for.
Okay.
So that's how we're going to address those issues.
Okay. Trustee Williams?
So addressing those issues in that manner, does that put a undue budget restriction on you all?
We've planned for a pretty significant quality control program this year. The hope is to get them on the right track and the right project initially and early on, so that we don't have to maintain that same level of kind of diligence, if you will. That's something we'll just have to see how it goes. But that's the hope, is that we can get everyone off on the right foot, get off to the right, get them off to a good start. We won't have those issues later on in the project, and it will be continuous throughout the project.
I kind of have a quick question in terms of integrity of the process. If in other projects they have, towns have paid for a certain amount, for certain quality product, they haven't received that. Is that by negligence? Is that by ignorance? Or is that a conscious decision to skim some profits?
Well, that's a tough question.
I know, I'm sorry. But the answer is really important to me.
I understand, and if it was negligent, we never would have recommended that they be awarded, and we did give our recommendation. Like I said, we have worked with them on numerous projects for other municipalities in the past. They continue to work for those municipalities because ultimately they do, in many, many cases, they do provide a good service and a good quality of product. I think sometimes what happens is you get into the paving season and you have crews that work 18, 20 hours a day. Sometimes maybe the person at the asphalt plant isn't as careful as they should be, and that's where we need to make sure that when that truck ticket comes out, that it's the right product. We're not just putting something in because it's convenient. So hopefully that answered your question about the negligence. I would recommend someone that I didn't feel could deliver that product. I just think we need to make sure that you continue to receive those high quality products that you're paying
I guess
for.
I just want you to have your eyes wide open,
Yes.
like you said from day one. This is, he has a lot of money out there. It's a big budget item, so we want to get it done right.
Trustee Scamatz?
Maybe something else. They were the paver that did the project last year, and we had a few quality control issues early on, and we're just going to continue that process to make sure that you get the product that you need.
And I was just going to say, I wouldn't go into it up front saying we're only going to review you at the beginning. That was my only concern about what you were saying. We're going to quality control hard at the beginning, then not. But I sure wouldn't want to hear you say that to them. So.
Well, and maybe I'm just smoking. The quality control is consistent throughout the project. There will be no change in that. But there's more than just simply testing the material. There's the FDR process. There's making sure that they're paving properly. That's where we want to make sure that things are done. That we catch on the very first street to make sure that they're you're getting the workmanship that you pay for.
And they know you're serious. Thanks.
One more question. For $254,000 more, does that get you better quality control?
I would say no. We looked at that, the number 2 bidder, we also called references on that. We've worked with that contractor a lot too, and we're working with that contractor right now on another project. They're doing a good job, but there's, I think, throughout the whole group, that quality control and that attention to detail on materials is always a question. So for $250,000 more, I wouldn't recommend doing that.
Thank you.
Public comment about this issue?
Jim Payne, Superior resident. I happen to live on Clayton Circle. I just had 2 questions as a resident, just curious. One is aesthetics. The last time Clayton Circle had any surfacing, and I don't know when that was, but it's, I'm going to say 5-6 years ago. It doesn't matter, but I assume it was a patch and overlay type of job. But the appearance was never very good. I mean, at the end of the day, it was sort of a brown, ugly brown, picks up, shows old oil stains, everything. Not a very attractive aesthetically as a good, deep black asphalt usually is. Is that something that would be affected by this or improved? That was one question. I'll just say the other is it looks like it's going to be done with the new approach. Will displace residents for a longer period of time, a day, 2 day, when we really would not have access. And I understand that has to do with the grade being so low because of the methodology that you just really can't access into your into your driveway. So it looks like it'll be done in 2 phases, looking at the presentation, if that's correct. So will there be, what are the arrangements for parking or otherwise for where we can park and people can park for those day or more? I understand. Clayton Circle does not have a lot of options for that. Right. So just those 2 questions.
No, and the Clayton Circle will be an overlay. We'll have a fresh asphalt surface, so it'll be similar to an overlay. I think what you're probably referring was probably a slurry seal or chip seal before, so we'll have a much better product. In terms of parking and access, we're going to be working that. We're suggesting things to the contractor. We still have to go back and forth with the contractor on his methodology, his sequence of activities and so forth. And there may, in fact, be, driveway ramps. So if for the week or so that you may be out, the driveway surface, we may ramp up so you can get onto your driveway. Parking on, we're going to divide the Clayton Circle up into 2 parts, so you can park on one part while the other it's not all going to be done at one time. It'll be done in 2 segments. And we're also thinking about parking on Indiana and being able to walk over through the connection. So several options. And I'm hoping that we can hire a summer intern whose primary task would be coordinating with the residents and trying to coordinate between the contractor, myself, and the residents to have a high level of communication so that we can tell them when we're going to pave and where they're going to park and help them in any way we can to make this process go as smooth as possible.
And that was a question I was going to ask, and you just answered it. How are we going to make this easy for the residents so that they're not going, I don't know what's going on?
Well, yeah, I mean, it comes down to communication with them and provide them as much information up front as we can. It's not going to be easy, but easier maybe.
Right.
Whatever we can do to help. So I think that's the important thing.
Sounds like a long, hot summer to me.
Yes, it does.
Any additional public comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion. Trustee Gregoris.
I'll make a motion to approve Town of Superior Resolution Number R-39, Series 2012, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Superior approving a construction contract with Asphalt Specialist Company, Inc. for the 2012 Street Maintenance and Rehabilitation Program.
Motion by Trustee Gregoris. Is there a second? Trustee Williams. Further discussion? Seeing none. Phyllis?
Doris?
Yes.
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 Thank you very much. That motion carries. And thanks, Alex, for all your hard work. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
That brings us to item number
Good presentation.
9, discussion and a motion in support of a preferred improvement option for the US 36 McCaslin interchange and authorizing payment to the City of Louisville for preliminary design services. Mr. Magley?
Thank you, Mayor. So this project seems to be moving along, so Alex has prepared another presentation. I would maybe just ask
Skip the background.
Alex, yeah, to kind of
Get to the 2012
use your
part.
best judgment on what you think. Most of the, I think, everybody on the board, I think, or the majority were at both of the public open houses like this, so everybody's pretty up to speed on it. But the City of Louisville meets tomorrow night to discuss this and provide direction to their manager and staff. And we're looking for the same for the board tonight. And Alex will cover this, I'm sure, but we're hoping to see if we can piggyback or gain some cost savings and be included as part of the phase 2. So.
I'll just cut to the chase here.
Thank you.
I think you've seen most of this and the alternatives we've explored for the interchange project and how we landed on the DDI concept, the Diverging Diamond. So this is a graphic prepared by a consultant about how it works, and I just wanted to put that up there because I know you may still have questions about it. Again, we start with a crossover intersection where we take the traffic going northbound and cross it over to the opposite side of the street that you normally travel on, and then combine with the off-ramp from the traffic coming off the turnpike, and then you end up with a free left onto the turnpike, or with traffic going through another crossover. And similarly, from the southbound traffic crossing over with a free left going to Denver. The key aspect for the capacity enhancements here is that the crossover is a two-phase traffic signal in comparison to what we have in the north side right now. We have a three-phase, so we take whatever the cycle length is and we divide it by 3 versus dividing it by 2. So by dividing by 2 you have much more time to satisfy the competing movements. So that's why it's more efficient than what we have out there now. Although it's similar to the loop concept, because the loop, the existing ramp intersection on the south side is essentially a two-phase signal. So we have two-phase on the south side, but a three-phase on the north side. So that's where we're getting our capacity enhancements. But the other thing that this does for us, the way we've laid this out, is on the eastbound ramp, we're now going to stop that with a traffic signal and have a 3-lane essentially exit from the ramp onto McCaslin, which alternates with the southbound through movement. So those two, if you have 100-second cycles, they'll be allocated about 45 seconds of green time apiece, plus the yellow wall green time. So what that does is it eliminates the merge movement that we have right now, and that's probably one of our significant issues. I noticed there was at least 2 accidents out there over the weekend with that merge. So we won't have that merge because we'll have a traffic light there, and so you won't be able to have the free right that you do now. But once you have a green light, those 3 lanes can make their way. You can go down, turn right at McCaslin, or go through on Marshall, or turn left to go eastbound on Marshall. So those are the traffic benefits, and then because we can't service the through movements at the ramps, we're proposing to have grade-separated movements for the buses, where for example, when the buses come off eastbound, they'll stop at the station where they are now, but then they'll go down under the off-ramp, so they will not have to stop at a traffic light. And right now, the average wait for a bus at the traffic lights is about a minute. So it'll be saving for every bus that goes through the interchange, saving up to a minute per bus. so that has significant benefits for bus riders. So those are the major aspects of the benefits of the DDI.
Quick question on the right turns. So when you're at the light there, if you're in the far right lane, but then you realize you didn't actually want to go down Marshall, you want to come up to Rock Creek, is there anything preventing you from merging over?
Well, here, hopefully we'll have signing and perhaps an overhead sign that tells you this lane is to turn, right at Marshall. So you want to get them set up here so they don't have to weave once they release on
But
Doncaster.
we have 3 through lanes going south up to, so you have to start to merge once you get past the bridge. So you've got some distance there to where you can.
down here? Going past Marshall?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then if you're over in the far left lane, you're just going to have to go a little slower and wait until you can merge over to go down Marshall. Okay. So there's not going to be a wall or anything that keeps people in the right lane.
So continuing on Chris's thing, same intersection, far left, I come off and I take that left, right?
Here?
Okay, the far left.
Over here?
Go the other way, yeah. Okay. Where?
So this is
when
going to Louisville.
Okay, go to Louisville.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I've got the traffic coming from the Caslin to go to Louisville. Am
So
I
you're
going to
having
have
to
that
weave here, yes.
same crossover mess that I now have going to Marshall?
Except that you'll have times, this will be stopped half the time.
Okay.
So you'll have much more opportunity. Here, right now, what's happening now, we have 100, of the 100-second cycle, there's 75 seconds going to the through movement. So right now, traffic going over that bridge is kind of continuously flowing. So you don't have as much opportunity to merge on there now. Now, half of the time, there won't be anybody coming north because it'll be stopped at the crosswalk.
But there's not going to be a light or anything there to prevent me from being gutsy and trying to cut in when traffic's coming?
No, but I mean, that's certainly something that we would monitor, and that's something that could be signalized and coordinated with here. You could put a signal, and again, you got to wait. So that's something we'll have to monitor and see whether that's, if we've just shifted the problem, but we do have the opportunity to signalize that.
It'll be constructed so it's easy to signalize?
Yes, I mean, that's one of the design issues we'll explore as we go through the design process.
Trustee Skumatz and Trustee Williams.
Is this when we're supposed to make all our comments about this design? Or something? Okay. So I continue to have a problem with what seems to me to be a Cadillac version for RTD, 40% of the cost for the RTD option. And it seems like there's got to be a more Volkswagen way to design that whole smear. It's certainly nice to have, but it doesn't seem to be a need to have, and it's an awfully huge part of the budget. And so I hope that this isn't the last design we see, but rather that this is the go-ahead for the diverging diamond concept, but perhaps not the way that every element of this RTD part goes.
Yeah, and certainly what we've done to date is not, we haven't had a whole lot of opportunity to interface with RTD. We've had a meeting where we exposed the concept to them, and they were open to the idea.
I'm sure they were.
But now, we have to go through, and there's opportunities for grade separating the pedestrians versus the buses. So there's things we can do, and we also at that meeting we said, well, we can not do anything, and then you have to try to find your way through this complex. So we can move the bus station. I mean, we've thrown out some options, and that'll be further things that we'll be cooperating. And we've been meeting with the board members and seeing what the support they have for maybe providing some funding for that.
And $5 million is a lot for a minute.
Yeah. And I think as part of this, correct me if I'm wrong, this 20-30% design that we would move forward with would include options with slip ramps and without. Is that right? Yeah.
All right, thanks.
Trustee Williams.
A couple things. So have we identified all the different funding options that we would have with this?
We have identified a number of different funding options. I don't know if it's all of them, but yeah, and then we continue to look at others as well.
So we're talking, obviously, we're talking to RTD about maybe footing the bill for the $5 million.
Yep.
I'm assuming.
We're looking at hopefully cost savings with the Phase 2, if we can get into that.
How are we going about that?
Well, we have to do this 20,
They're
30%
persistent
design
first.
and get that to CDOT, and then proceed from there.
Yeah, I mean, there's CDOT, Dr. Cog, I mean,
Right.
we had money allocated for this interchange at one time. And-
Which we lost.
And so, and so we're going to go back and see if there's things that could be, funds that could be freed up in later years or put to this project, so we'll
have discussions with CDOT, and like Alex said, there might be opportunities through next year, or whenever the next tip cycle comes up forward, any federal money that might be available. Yeah, so we're looking at all the options.
So we could possibly get in the tip 2012 to 2017, possibly, if there's extra funds in a year from now.
There's been a request not to go into this tip cycle.
By?
Boulder County, and
the corridor,
so we don't compete for the 36.
Okay. That makes sense. Now, who would we have to get authorization for the 36 project being part of their phasing?
Well, that'll be a decision of CDOT.
I think what CDOT, if we wanted to go into the Phase 2 design build, they're asking that we, take the project down to about 20% design, so we know it's feasible, and then come up with a funding strategy. Who's going to pay for it, and come up with an intergovernmental agreement and so forth.
Yeah, we're working on that. Okay.
So, the alternative, if we don't make that window, is to build it as a separate project and maybe still go after funding and take it as a separate project through things and not. So we could do that and get our ducks lined up in terms of funding, but we're trying to make that window in case funding does come through.
And what is that window of opportunity? What's that
they're
timeframe?
trying to get the RFP for design build firms out in July. Okay, they've already issued a request for qualifications, so they actually have 4 teams that submitted qualification statements. So the next phase is to give them enough of a design so they can take the design and carry forward and
By July? By July?
No, July is when the RFP is issued.
Okay.
And that's when they give the contractors, here's 20% design, and you come back with a package that shows us you're the best design build firm. So, and that probably will be awarded next January, February. Right? The team is picked, and whatever the dollars are contained in that proposed is decided on.
So what is our potential cost onto our town? What is the high and what is the low?
Well, certainly this has a $12.4 million price tag. Just for the DDI improvements, it's about $7 million. So,
And the IGA we have with Louisville is that's a 50-50
split. So $3.5 million may be on the low side if we just do the DDI. And I think we may have to upfront a lot of this, but get paid back either by Dr. Cog or RTD. So, potential is a big cost, but it could be payback by several entities.
All right, and then the other thing I wanted to make a note on, I've driven these diverging diamond interchanges probably about a dozen times in Springfield, Missouri, and St. Louis. And when you're driving it, you have no idea you're coming to something different. It looks the same as any other roads, and it feels like you're on a one-way road. You don't really feel you're on the opposite side of the street. And they put signage to kind of tell you what you're coming into, and you kind of think, oh, okay, something different. But when you actually drive it, it feels, you become disappointed because you're like, wow, I was expecting something kind of cool, but it's very simple, and it doesn't look like it's simple, but when you're driving it, it is. And it's not unnatural, the stops, the stoplight, the turning, and it just feels like you're on a one-way road.
Good. Trustee Gregors?
So we're having this discussion here, and this motion has two parts, right? So as you know, I'm totally in favor of the diverging diamond interchange. We put a lot of time and effort and nice collaboration with Louisville. So that part of the motion is the easy one. The authorizing payment to the city of Louisville for the preliminary design services of up to $190,000. So, yeah, I don't mean to insult anybody on the other side of 36, but again, we're the first ones that are, we're putting the money up again, right?
Well, it's a 50-50 split.
But is this, the $190,000 isn't that going to Louisville
Right, but they're
for the
putting
design
they're putting up the same amount.
at the same time?
Yeah, that they do that tomorrow night.
Then I have no further questions.
Just
Let's
the
go down a
managing
different.
discussion
Is
that
that-
we manage the
As
last-
long as, if they can, I didn't know they had the money to come up with it.
Yeah, they do have budget for design work.
Okay, very good. Then I'm all in favor. That's the case.
Gumatz?
And I know we asked Alex to skip past all the background stuff, but I do, for anybody who is listening, they may wonder, why did we come up with this and what happened to the other options and all that sort of stuff, and highlights of that discussion from my point of view are that, we might have preferred a loop that goes near the outback, and that the benefit cost ratio for this is 12.7, the benefit cost ratio for that one is considerably better than that, but it was vetoed by Louisville, and that was pretty much the end of the discussion. But I will say again that I was disappointed that no council members from Louisville came to any of the meetings, and I didn't think that was very nice.
Can I get something
Trustee
clarified?
Hanson.
I'm sorry, Andrew, thank
That's
you.
good.
The benefit ratio, wasn't that for just a 10-year period of time on the Northeast Loop? But when you compare it with the length of time or the lifespan of this diverging diamond, the actual long-term benefit ratio is much better for the diverging diamond.
Right.
Here's the cost-benefit ratio, and it improves over the time because diverging diamond can handle traffic for a longer period of time. I kind of have a problem with this comparison because there's no cost-benefit for the bus users, and I think that's a real fallacy in this particular analysis. It's all vehicular users and not the bus riders. So I think when you throw those in, you even have a better cost-benefit ratio as compared to, the double left turn lane, for example. The Northeast Loop, I don't have it right here. I probably have it in other. You've probably seen it in another.
The numbers they
slide.
presented were better for
The Northeast Loop, and probably because you didn't have the $5 million for the
Precisely.
bus ramps.
Yeah.
Trustee Williams?
The pedestrian bridge that's on both sides, that is completely separate from the actual one-way road, right? On each
Yes.
side.
Yes, the whole intent here is to save the bridge that we have. So we have sidewalks on the existing bridge, taking those off to allow us to have the room for the 6 lanes and the buffer separation and so forth. So that ends up putting the bridges on the outside, so we built new pedestrian structures on both sides.
Oh, I see. Okay, so this is an add-on.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay, I didn't
Yeah, so it's
get that.
it's a new structure separated from the
Okay.
original one.
And can you ride a bike on it?
Yes.
Would that be illegal?
No.
No.
Okay.
And that's a design issue as we get into how wide should they be. I think they're probably going to be at least 8 feet wide, so you could have pedestrians and bikes going at the same time.
Because the fact that it's completely separate, I mean, now you've allowed bikers to feel completely safe, and obviously that will be the first thing they start to do, because I know that's a big complaint.
Right, and this is a, debate about the diverging diamond, whether you put the PEDs in the middle or on the outside, and so that's a major consideration as we go through the design process, how pedestrian facilities will be designed.
And the two that I drove over and over and over, they had the pedestrian walkway
In the
and
middle.
bikeway in the center.
In the middle,
Yeah, in
right.
the very center.
So can I have a couple questions. One has to do with pedestrian facilities. So I can see how if you're going just north-south, you get onto the pedestrian sidewalk, separated. But if you're trying to cross from left to right or east to west, how do you get across there?
You'll cross, and actually it's easier to cross here. You probably cross this way and that way.
So all the
You probably here and there. I mean,
so
I'm assuming.
you push a ped light and the whole interchange stops. Is that kind of what's required?
Well, right, but no, you'll go with the direction of flow.
Yeah. So
Because
I
if
guess
you're going here, you won't wait. I mean, there's 45 seconds each time. So when you push your button, you'll wait until the traffic flow in your direction goes.
So just when it comes back, I would love to see how pedestrians get across and forward.
Right, and this is a debate I'm having with Louisville, because I would have preferred to have them in the center, but they felt the pedestrian experience in the center was very diminished. compared to-
Exciting.
Exciting, yes.
So I'll be learning more about that as we go forward.
Okay. And then in terms of the reclamation of where the loop is right now, will that be, I want to make sure that that's part of the 50-50 split in terms of costs. So, because we're taking out that whole area there, which, we don't want to leave an asphalt and concrete.
No,
so.
and actually, as we go through the town center discussion and design, we're having issues or discussions about where detention's going to go, and so there might be an opportunity to use that land for additional detention that we need as
Okay.
part of that development, which might help us quite a bit, so.
Okay, well, I just want to make sure that that's not left
Right,
as
yeah.
an item that we
Yeah,
have to
yeah.
foot the bill individually.
Yep.
And then, this is probably too soon for this, but I want to make sure that there's significant aesthetic improvement to this, and so it's probably too soon for the 20% design, but I want to make sure that this looks not like a sheet of asphalt, but there's actually some interest in there, either with plantings or stonework or whatever, so.
I'm sure Trustee Pennington has been wanting to say something.
No, I'm
Are you
going
okay?
to resist that, but I would agree that, given what we've got planned for the town center and elsewhere, this has got to look welcoming and as an entrance to our fair town and not as asphalt jungle.
Trustees comments?
So, I don't know if it matters where this document goes, but to me, the primary benefit is not this eliminates the weave. Because the weave can be solved lots of different ways. I think the primary benefit here is the avoiding left turns onto the highway to Boulder. So that wouldn't be what I would consider its primary benefit, FYI. So lower left corner.
Okay, that was the consultant. I didn't realize it was.
Trustee Williams?
Couple things. First of all, the trees that were planted here,
Yeah.
that $40,000 worth of trees there, what happens to those trees now?
We will relocate those.
Where? Any
Wow,
ideas?
we don't have an idea.
Okay, all right, I thought you had an idea. Okay, no problem. No problem. Town night. Hey, there you go. Okay, just curious if you had any ideas. And then the other thing is, I'm wondering why we are not claiming more of this land. I realize that you have to join here, but why is this kind of looped out? Why can't it be looped in? So that we can claim more of that land.
I think that's a that's a design issue. Certainly, we have some geometry to deal with.
Okay.
But I think we'll look at that. First of all, we're trying to save as much of the ramp as we can.
But not at the cost of land or not
Right.
at the cost of crazy under, over, whatever's. I mean,
So
yeah, sorry.
the location of that certainly is something we'll take a look at. I mean, this is a sketch and a concept, and now
Yeah.
we're getting into those nitty-gritty decisions.
Well, and that just bugs me. That I just have an issue with that. It just seems like we're taking up space for no reason. That it could.
Well, and there's some detention in there too as well, in that area there that currently exists, so that will have to be considered as well.
The primary issue is how do we do that grade separation? That's going to be critical if we in fact do the grade separations, because you got to go under and you got to go over and you got to bridge. Back here you got to go under and you got to match that grade. So all those will, play into the decision of how that's laid out.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Any public comment regarding this? Or to action? I guess my only comment is I guess this is the way we're going. It causes me great heartburn that we're not doing what we all anticipated was going to be done in the past, but for potentially, depending, RTD is not going to come up with a lot of money, just FYI, so I think we're going to be footing a big chunk of the bill, so.
How do you know that?
They don't have any money to do anything, so, they're not going to go to ballot for the increased amounts, so they have a hard time finding money that they can program to do what they already do, so I'll be flabbergasted if RTD comes up with any significant amount of money. So I'm in favor of going forward with the design and the engineering, but I'm not certain that this is going to be something long-term I'm going to support unless we find a dedicated funding stream. Trustee Skumatz.
And two things, have a big motion, but I agree with you, and if it comes forward with a $5 million RTD thing, I'm not going to be happy about that either. So that I'm not willing to go that far for RTD, who hasn't been willing to go that far for us. So. But anyway,
Okay. Motion?
So, yeah. Thanks.
Trustee Skumatz.
I'd like to move to support the diverging diamond concept as the preferred option for improvements to the US 36 McCaslin Boulevard interchange, and authorize payment to the City of Louisville in an amount not to exceed $190,105 for the town's proportionate share of costs for design services associated with refining of the concept for CDOT access approval and possible inclusion of the US 36 Phase 2 Design Build RFP.
Are there resolutions for that?
No.
So we're just
Just a motion.
Just a motion. Okay. So, motion by Trustee Skumatz, second. Trustee Gregoris. Any further discussion? Phyllis?
Muckle?
Yes.
Pennington?
Yes.
Skumat?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Gregoris?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That motion carries. That brings us near the end of our meeting, but we go to item number 10, executive session, to determine positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, develop a strategy for negotiations, and/or instruct negotiators pursuant to CRS 24-6-402(4)(e) regarding the Jefferson Parkway and McCaslin interchange, and to hold a conference with the town's attorney to receive legal advice on specific legal questions pursuant to CRS 24-6-402(4)(b). Is there a motion?
So moved.
By Trustee Skumatz, second by Trustee Williams. Discussion, all in favor? Unanimous, thank you. We're in executive session.